I saw my boss naked. Not in some sleazy office fantasy or late-night dream, in broad daylight, on a public beach, with my 8-year-old daughter standing right beside me. In that frozen moment, wind howling, fabric flying, eyes meeting across 15 feet of burning sand, I watched my entire career disintegrate like a sandcastle at high tide. Everything I'd worked for, every late night, every sacrifice since the divorce, gone in one catastrophic gust of Florida wind. But what happened next? Nobody could have predicted that. Stay with me until the end and drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from. I want to see how far this story travels. The sun hammered down on Clearwater Beach like God's own spotlight, turning the sand into a billion tiny mirrors that reflected heat and light in equal measure. Ryan Cole squinted against the glare, one hand shading his eyes, the other gripping a collapsible beach chair that had already collapsed twice during the walk from the parking lot. His daughter Emma skipped ahead, her pink swimsuit bright against the white sand, her laugh carried back to him on the salt-thick breeze. "Daddy, hurry up! You're so slow!" Ryan smiled despite the sweat running down his spine, despite the chair digging into his shoulder, despite the cooler banging against his knee with every step. This was supposed to be his day off. Their day. The first real break he'd managed to steal in 3 months of relentless work, crushing deadlines, and the suffocating pressure of proving himself indispensable at Morrison and Associates. "Some of us are carrying all the supplies, kiddo," he called back. But Emma had already found her spot and was dancing in circles, arms spread wide like she could embrace the entire ocean. At 34, Ryan had perfected the art of compartmentalization. Monday through Friday, he was Ryan Cole, dependable project manager, first one in and last one out. The guy who never complained about overtime or impossible deadlines. Weekends belonged to Emma, or at least they were supposed to. More often than not, Saturday mornings dissolved into answering emails while Emma watched cartoons. Sundays vanished into preparing presentations for Monday morning meetings. But not today. Today, he'd actually turned his phone off. Well, he'd silenced it. Okay, fine. He'd just turned off the vibration. But still, progress. "Right here, Daddy!" Emma pointed at a stretch of sand near the water's edge, equidistant from a young couple throwing a frisbee and a family with 3 screaming toddlers. "This is our spot." Ryan dropped the chair, the cooler, and the oversized beach bag that his ex-wife Jennifer had insisted Emma needed for proper sun protection. The bag contained approximately 7 pounds of sunscreen, 3 different types of hats, 2 pairs of sunglasses, and a first aid kit that could handle everything short of open-heart surgery. Jennifer had always been thorough. It was one of the things he'd loved about her once, back before thorough became controlling, before organized turned into rigid, before the marriage that was supposed to last forever had ended with signatures on dotted lines and a custody arrangement that gave him every other weekend and alternating Wednesdays. "Earth to Daddy!" Emma waved her hand in front of his face. "You're doing the thing again." "What thing?" The sad face staring at nothing thing. She planted her hands on her hips in a gesture so reminiscent of Jennifer that Ryan's chest tightened. "You promised this was a fun day. Fun days don't have sad faces." Ryan knelt down, eye level with his daughter, and forced the shadows from his expression. Emma had her mother's dark eyes and his unruly blonde hair. The worst of both worlds, Jennifer used to joke, back when they still joked about things. But Emma had something neither of them possessed, an unwavering belief that the world was fundamentally good, that people were kind, that happiness was always just one sandcastle away. "You're absolutely right," Ryan said, pulling her into a quick hug. "No sad faces, not today. Today is about fun, ocean, and..." He reached into the cooler, ice cream before lunch, which is definitely not something Mom approved. Emma's eyes went wide. "Really? Really? But you can't tell her. Our secret." Emma mimed zipping her lips, then unzipped them immediately. "Can I go in the water?" "Sunscreen first." The groan that followed could have registered on the Richter scale, but Emma submitted to the ritual with only minimal complaint. Ryan slathered SPF 50 on every exposed inch of skin, reapplied it to the spots she'd immediately rubbed off, then watched as she charged toward the waves like a tiny blonde warrior going to battle. For a moment, just a moment, Ryan let himself breathe. The beach wasn't crowded. It was a Wednesday in early June, too late for spring break, too early for peak summer tourism. The people scattered across the sand existed in their own private bubbles of vacation bliss, oblivious to each other's dramas and deadlines and divorce proceedings. A few elderly couples walked the waterline hand in hand. A group of college students had set up an elaborate volleyball net. Somewhere a radio played Jimmy Buffett, because of course it did. Ryan set up his chair, positioned the umbrella to block the worst of the sun, and pulled out the thriller novel he'd been trying to finish for 6 months. He'd made it through exactly 2 pages when his phone buzzed. He told himself he wouldn't look. He'd promised himself, promised Emma, promised the universe that this day was sacred and work-free and completely, totally, absolutely off-limits to... The phone buzzed again. His hand moved before his brain could stop it. The screen showed 2 messages, both from the last person on Earth he wanted to hear from on his day off. Madeline Cross, 2:17 p.m. Need the Henderson files first thing tomorrow. No exceptions. Madeline Cross, 2:18 p.m. Also, the quarterly review presentation needs revision. Timeline discussion. Monday, 8 a.m. sharp. Ryan's jaw clenched hard enough to hurt. Madeline Cross, his boss. The woman who'd taken the phrase high expectations and weaponized it into an art form. In the 8 months since she'd transferred to the Tampa office to run the regional division, she'd transformed Morrison and Associates from a comfortably productive workplace into a pressure cooker of constant deadlines, weekend work, and the kind of stress that made Ryan's left eye twitch during budget meetings. She wasn't cruel, exactly. She never yelled, never belittled, never crossed any lines that HR would care about. She was simply relentless, perfectly professional, impeccably dressed, and completely unreachable behind a wall of icy competence that made every interaction feel like a performance review. Ryan had watched 3 colleagues quit in the past 5 months. 2 more had requested transfers. The ones who remained, including Ryan, did so out of necessity, fear, or some complicated combination of both. Single fathers with custody schedules and child support payments didn't have the luxury of walking away from good salaries. Even when those salaries came with bosses who sent work emails on Wednesday afternoons while their employees were trying to have a normal human day at the beach. He typed out 3 different responses, deleted all of them, then settled on, "Understood. We'll have everything ready." The moment he hit send, guilt crashed over him like the waves currently knocking Emma off her feet. This was supposed to be their day. No work, no emails. No Madeline Cross reaching through his phone to remind him that he was never really off the clock. "Daddy, look!" Emma stood waist deep in the surf, holding up something that might have been a shell or possibly a small rock. "I found treasure," Ryan waved back, shoving his phone deep into the beach bag where it couldn't tempt him further. The Henderson files could wait. The quarterly review could wait. Madeline Cross, with her perfectly tailored suits and her ice queen demeanor and her complete inability to understand that people had lives outside the office, she could definitely wait. He opened his book again, determined to actually read this time. He made it through half a page before Emma came running back, dripping and breathless, demanding he help her build the biggest sandcastle in the entire world, maybe even the universe. Ryan let her drag him down to the packed sand near the water's edge, where they began construction on what Emma insisted would be a palace fit for a queen. "It needs towers," Emma announced, patting wet sand into a lopsided pile. "At least 4, maybe 7. 7 towers seems ambitious." "Queens are ambitious, Daddy. That's what makes them queens." Ryan couldn't argue with that logic. They worked in comfortable silence, the kind of easy companionship that made single parenthood worth every exhausting moment. Emma narrated an elaborate story about the queen who would live in this castle, a tale involving dragons and magic swords, and a pet dolphin named Steve. Ryan contributed architectural suggestions and tried not to think about work. He was actually succeeding in being present and focused and fully engaged in the moment when Emma suddenly looked up and said, "Daddy, why is that lady's bathing suit flying away?" Ryan followed her gaze down the beach where the wind, which had been building steadily for the past 20 minutes, had apparently decided to escalate from pleasant breeze to minor hurricane. A beach umbrella tumbled past them, chased by its owner. A few loose towels took flight like colorful ghosts. And there, approximately 50 feet away, A woman stood frozen in obvious distress as a strong gust of wind caught her cover-up and sent it spiraling into the air like a fabric tornado. The woman made a desperate grab for it, missed, stumbled slightly in the sand. The cover-up sailed higher, farther, completely out of reach. And in that moment, in the split second before she could react or cover herself or run for the safety of the water, the wind picked up her bikini top as well. Ryan saw her hand shoot up to catch it, saw her miss, saw the bright blue fabric catch another gust and fly away to join the cover-up in its journey down the beach. Time performed that strange trick it does in moments of absolute disaster, everything simultaneously speeding up and slowing down, reality fracturing into a series of crystal-clear snapshots that would be burned into Ryan's memory forever. The woman, frozen, arms crossing over her chest, face tilting up, their eyes meeting. Recognition hitting Ryan like a physical blow. No. No, no. No, 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 no. It was impossible. It was a nightmare. It was some kind of cosmic joke orchestrated by a universe that had decided Ryan Cole's life wasn't quite complicated enough. The woman standing half naked on Clearwater Beach, her eyes wide with horror and recognition, her perfectly composed professional mask shattered into a million pieces, was Madeline Cross, his boss. Emma tugged on his arm. "Daddy, shouldn't you help her?" Ryan couldn't move, couldn't breathe, couldn't process what his eyes were showing him. This wasn't happening. This couldn't be happening. Madeline Cross didn't go to beaches. She didn't wear bathing suits. She didn't exist outside the controlled environment of the office, where she ruled from behind a massive mahogany desk and never ever showed vulnerability of any kind, much less, "Daddy." Emma's voice turned sharp with the particular brand of 8-year-old indignation reserved for adults who weren't acting like adults. "She needs help. You have to help her." The command broke through Ryan's paralysis. He grabbed the largest towel from their pile of supplies and started walking toward his boss. Each step felt like walking through concrete. His brain screamed at him to turn around, to pretend he hadn't seen anything, to maintain plausible deniability and save whatever shreds of dignity remained for both of them. But Emma was watching. Emma, who believed people helped each other, who trusted that her father did the right thing even when the right thing was absolutely the last thing in the world he wanted to do. Madeline saw him coming. Her face went through several distinct phases of emotion in rapid succession: shock, recognition, horror, resignation. When he got within 10 feet, she held up one hand, the other still pressed firmly across her chest. "Mr. Cole." Her voice somehow maintained its professional composure despite the absolutely insane circumstances. "I can explain. Ms. Cross, Ryan held out the towel, keeping his eyes locked on her face with such determination that his neck muscles started to ache. "Please, take this." She grabbed it with her free hand, wrapped it around herself with practiced efficiency, and somehow managed to make even that gesture look dignified. For a moment they stood there, two people trying desperately to pretend this was a normal, professional interaction and not the single most mortifying experience either of them had ever endured. "Thank you," Madeline said finally. "I appear to have underestimated the wind conditions." "It's pretty rough today," Ryan agreed, then immediately wanted to throw himself into the ocean. "It's pretty rough today?" That was the best he could do? His English degree and 8 years of corporate communications experience had prepared him for this moment with, "It's pretty rough today?" "Your daughter?" Madeline nodded toward Emma, who had abandoned the sandcastle and was now standing a respectful distance away, watching the adults with undisguised curiosity. "Yes." "Emma, we're having a beach day, together, as a family. Well, not a complete family, obviously, because her mother isn't here. We're divorced. But that's not relevant to anything, and I'm going to stop talking now." A flicker of something, amusement, sympathy, crossed Madeline's face. "I see." Silence stretched between them, awkward and heavy. Down the beach, someone had caught Madeline's runaway cover-up and was walking toward them with it. Ryan recognized the universe giving him an escape route. "I should get back to Emma," he said, already backing away, "and you probably want to—" He gestured vaguely at everything, at nothing, at the general disaster of the situation. "Anyway, I'll have those files ready tomorrow, the Henderson ones, and the quarterly review presentation. All of it. First thing, you have my word. Mr. Cole, but Ryan was already retreating, already moving back toward the safety of his daughter and their sandcastle, and the comfortable fiction that the last 5 minutes hadn't happened. Behind him, he heard Madeline thank the Good Samaritan who'd retrieved her cover-up. He didn't look back. Emma met him halfway, her face scrunched up with questions. Was that your boss? Yes? The mean one you complain about to Uncle David on the phone? Ryan winced. I don't complain. I discuss workplace dynamics. You called her the Ice Queen last Tuesday. Emma, we don't repeat things we overhear during adult phone conversations. You said she has a heart made of frozen performance reviews. That was just venting. Grown-ups need to vent sometimes. It doesn't mean... Ryan stopped, caught between parental responsibility and the desperate desire to discuss the absolute insanity of what had just occurred. Can we please not talk about this right now? Emma studied him with the unnervingly perceptive gaze that all children seem to possess. She looked really embarrassed. Yes, she did. Did you get embarrassed too? Emma, I am embarrassed on a level that might actually be visible from space. She's really pretty, Emma said, apropos of nothing. In a scary kind of way. Ryan opened his mouth, closed it, then decided this conversation had already jumped off the rails and might as well keep going. What do you mean, scary? Emma shrugged. Like a queen, but not the kind in my castle. The kind that turns people into toads if they don't bow right. Out of the mouths of babes. Ryan rubbed his face, felt the sun-hot skin, wondered if he was already sunburned or if his face was just permanently flushed from the sheer mortification of the past 10 minutes. Come on, he said. Let's finish that castle. The queen needs her 7 towers. They returned to their construction project, but Ryan's heart wasn't in it anymore. His mind kept replaying the moment, the eye contact, the recognition, the terrible understanding that his boss had seen him see her, that there was no pretending it hadn't happened, no professional courtesy that could paper over this particular awkwardness. Tomorrow morning, he'd walk into the office and she'd be there, perfectly composed in one of her sharp business suits, and they'd have to interact like professionals, like nothing had changed, like he hadn't seen her half naked on a public beach, and she hadn't caught him staring, and the whole thing hadn't been witnessed by his 8-year-old daughter, who would undoubtedly tell her mother, who would somehow find a way to use this information against him in their ongoing custody negotiations. He was so lost in his spiral of anxiety that he didn't notice Madeline approaching until Emma tugged on his arm again. Daddy, she's coming back. Ryan's stomach dropped. He looked up to see his boss, now safely covered in what appeared to be a different beach outfit, a simple sundress that somehow still looked professionally elegant, walking toward them with the kind of determined stride usually reserved for entering boardrooms or firing underperforming employees. Mr. Cole, she said as she reached them. Might I have a word? Emma piped up before Ryan could respond. You can call him Ryan. We're not at work. Madeline's gaze dropped to Emma, and something in her expression softened fractionally. And you must be Emma. How did you know my name? Your father keeps a picture of you on his desk. You're wearing a yellow dress and holding a certificate. That was from Spelling Bee, Emma beamed. I got 3rd place. Do you have kids? Emma, Ryan interjected, his voice strangled. That's a personal question. It's all right, Madeline said, still looking at Emma. No, I don't have children. Do you like building sandcastles? I love it. Daddy's helping me build one with 7 towers for the queen. Want to see? Ryan wanted the sand to open up and swallow him whole. This couldn't be real. His boss wasn't standing on the beach making small talk with his daughter about sandcastles. This was a stress dream. He'd fallen asleep in his chair, and any moment now, he'd wake up and... I'd love to see it, Madeline said. Emma grabbed her hand, actually grabbed Madeline Cross's hand, and started pulling her toward their construction site. Madeline followed without protest, leaving Ryan to trail behind like a confused party guest who'd stumbled into someone else's event. See? Emma pointed at their work in progress. We've got 4 towers done and we're working on the 5th. The queen needs 7 because she's super powerful, and also she has a pet dolphin named Steve. Steve seems like an unusual name for a dolphin. Dolphins can be named whatever they want. Emma said, with the absolute certainty of a child who'd never been contradicted on dolphin nomenclature. Do you know how to build sandcastles? I'm afraid I'm quite out of practice. It's easy. Daddy's not very good either, but he tries really hard, and that's what counts. Ryan pinched the bridge of his nose. Thank you for that character assessment, kiddo. Madeline did something then that Ryan had never seen before, something so unprecedented that he actually took a step back in surprise. She smiled. Not the tight, professional smile she deployed in meetings, not the thin-lipped expression of barely concealed impatience she wore when explaining things for the third time to slower colleagues. This was a real smile, genuine and unguarded, and it transformed her entire face from corporate ice queen to someone who looked almost human. May I help? She asked Emma. Really? If your father doesn't mind. Both of them turned to look at Ryan, who felt like he'd been dropped into an alternate dimension where nothing made sense, and the laws of physics had been replaced by some kind of surrealist fever dream logic. Sure, yes, absolutely. Please help yourself to our sandcastle. Yay! Emma dropped to her knees in the sand and started patting the next tower into shape. After a moment's hesitation, Madeline knelt beside her, the white sundress billowing slightly in the breeze. Ryan stood there, completely at a loss, while his 8-year-old daughter and his terrifying boss discussed the structural integrity of sand towers and the proper ratio of water to dry sand. Emma chattered away, completely comfortable, asking questions about Madeline's work and whether she liked dolphins and if she'd ever seen a real castle. Madeline answered each question with surprising patience, her responses shorter than Emma's enthusiastic monologues, but genuine nonetheless. She helped pack sand, suggested drainage solutions for the moat, and even contributed ideas for decorating the walls with shells. You're good at this, Emma announced after they'd finished the 5th tower. Better than Daddy. Thank you, though I suspect your father has many other skills. He makes really good pancakes, Emma conceded, and he does all the voices when he reads me stories, different ones for every character. That does sound impressive. Ryan, who had been standing uselessly to the side watching this bizarre interaction unfold, finally found his voice. Can I get anyone water, snacks, a sense of what reality we're currently occupying? Madeline glanced up at him, and for just a second, he saw something vulnerable in her eyes. An acknowledgement of how strange this was, how far they'd both drifted from their normal roles. Then it was gone, replaced by her usual composure. Water would be lovely, actually. Thank you. He fetched water bottles from the cooler, distributed them to his boss and his daughter, and tried to process the fact that Madeline Cross was currently kneeling in the sand in a sundress, helping his child build a castle while discussing the Queen's hypothetical dietary preferences. She only eats blue food, Emma was explaining. Blueberries, blue corn chips, blue popsicles. That seems nutritionally limiting. She's magic, so she doesn't need regular nutrients. I see. And Steve the dolphin? He eats regular fish food. Dolphins can't be magic. Why not? Emma looked genuinely stumped by this question. I don't know, can they? I don't see why not. If the Queen can be magic, perhaps Steve could have some minor magical abilities as well. Nothing too powerful. Perhaps he can understand human speech. Oh, Emma's face lit up. That's perfect. Then he can help the Queen solve mysteries. Ryan sat down heavily in his beach chair, watching the scene unfold with the distant confusion of someone who'd started the day with one understanding of the universe and was rapidly developing a completely different one. This woman, this person who made grown men nervous in meetings, who'd never cracked a smile during budget reviews, who seemed to exist in a perpetual state of professional perfection, was making up stories about magical dolphins with his daughter. They worked on the castle for another 20 minutes, the towers growing taller and more elaborate. Emma named each one after a different virtue the Queen supposedly embodied: courage, wisdom, kindness, strength, humor, love, and, after much debate, pizza. Pizza isn't a virtue, Madeline pointed out gently. It is if you really believe in it, Emma countered. Madeline considered this. Fair point. When the 7th tower was complete, Emma sat back on her heels and surveyed their work with obvious pride. It's perfect. The Queen would love it. I think you're right, Madeline agreed. Though I'm afraid the tide will claim it eventually, all castles fall. But we can build new ones, Emma said with the resilient optimism of childhood. Every time we come back to the beach, we can make something different. Better, even. Madeline looked at the castle for a long moment, something unreadable crossing her face. Yes, I suppose we can. The sun had shifted lower in the sky, painting everything in shades of gold. Other beachgoers began packing up their belongings, heading back to cars and hotels and real life. Ryan checked his phone, almost 5 o'clock. Where had the afternoon gone? Emma, we should probably start heading home, he said. You've got school tomorrow. 5 more minutes? The eternal childhood plea. 5 more minutes, Ryan agreed. Emma immediately started decorating the castle walls with shells, humming to herself. Madeline stood, brushing sand from her dress, and moved to stand next to Ryan's chair. For a moment, they both just watched Emma work, the silence between them less awkward than it had been before, but still weighted with unspoken things. Thank you, Madeline said finally, for the towel, for not... She trailed off, clearly unsure how to finish that sentence. For not what? Making an already mortifying situation worse? A ghost of a smile. Something like that. For what it's worth, Ryan said, keeping his voice low enough that Emma wouldn't hear. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. I wasn't trying to. Mr. Cole. She cut him off, her tone gentle but firm. It was an accident. A ridiculous, unfortunate accident that we're both going to pretend never happened starting tomorrow morning when we return to the office. Agreed? Absolutely. Completely agreed. Forgotten already. Good. She paused, then added, Your daughter is lovely. The compliment caught Ryan off guard. Thank you. She's the best thing I've ever done, even on days when she critiques my sandcastle building skills in front of my boss. She has excellent judgment. Madeline's expression turned thoughtful. How do you do it? Balance everything? Work and parenting and... She gestured vaguely at the beach, at the castle, at the life he was trying to build in the wreckage of his divorce. Ryan laughed, but it came out more bitter than he intended. Do I look balanced to me? I answer work emails on my daughter's beach day. I fall asleep during bedtime stories. I feed her cereal for dinner at least twice a week. I'm not balancing anything. I'm just barely keeping all the plates spinning. Madeline was quiet for a moment. When she spoke again, her voice carried a weight Ryan had never heard before. I had a call scheduled for this afternoon, a very important call with potential investors. I was supposed to be in my hotel room, not at the beach. But I woke up this morning and realized I couldn't remember the last time I'd done something that wasn't work-related. The last time I'd felt sun on my skin or sand between my toes, or... She stopped, seeming to catch herself. I'm sorry, that wasn't appropriate. No, Ryan said quickly. I understand. More than you might think. They stood there, boss and employee, both looking at Emma's joyful focus, both carrying weights the other was only beginning to perceive. She told me about the spelling bee, Madeline said. 3rd place. She was very proud. I missed it, Ryan admitted. Big presentation that morning. Couldn't reschedule. Jennifer, my ex-wife, she went. She sent me pictures. That must have been difficult. It was necessary. Work comes first, right? That's what you're always telling us. Deadlines matter, clients matter, everything else is... Mr. Cole, Madeline's voice cut through his building resentment. I never said people don't matter. Ryan turned to look at her fully, seeing her in the golden afternoon light, her perfectly styled hair slightly mussed by the wind, her professional armor partially stripped away. She looked tired, he realized. Not just physically tired, but soul-deep exhausted in a way he recognized because he saw it in his own mirror every morning. Tomorrow, she continued, when I send you deadlines and schedule meetings and push you to work harder, that's my job. But right now, on this beach, I'm just someone who needed to remember what sunshine feels like. And you're just a father spending time with his daughter. Can we allow ourselves that? Just for today? Emma called out, Daddy, Ms. Cross, come see. I made a garden. They walked over to admire Emma's creation, a collection of shells arranged in careful patterns around the castle base. Emma explained the significance of each shell, the flowers they represented in the Queen's royal garden. Ryan made appropriate admiring noises. Madeline knelt down again, pointing out a particularly beautiful spiral shell and suggesting it could be the centerpiece. The tide was coming in, each wave reaching a little farther up the beach. Soon it would claim the castle, dissolving hours of work in minutes. Emma seemed unconcerned. "It's okay," she told Madeline when the first wave licked at the outermost tower. "We got to enjoy it while it lasted. That's what Daddy always says about good things. You enjoy them while they're here." Madeline looked at Ryan over Emma's head, and something passed between them. An understanding, maybe, or just a shared recognition of a truth neither of them had wanted to acknowledge. "Your daughter is very wise," Madeline said. "She gets it from her mother," Ryan replied, then added, "The wisdom, I mean, not the existential acceptance of impermanence. That's all her." The next wave took 2 towers. Emma laughed as the sand dissolved, running up the beach to avoid getting soaked. Madeline and Ryan followed, standing side by side as they watched the ocean methodically reclaim their afternoon's work. "I should go," Madeline said. "I've imposed on your family time long enough." "You didn't impose. Emma loved having help with the castle." Still, she straightened her dress, tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, and Ryan saw her rebuilding her walls in real time, piece by piece. "I'll see you tomorrow morning, Mr. Cole, 8 a.m., conference room B. The Henderson files and the quarterly review." "I'll be ready." She nodded, started to walk away, then turned back. "Mr. Cole? Ryan?" The use of his first name made him blink. "What Emma said about enjoying good things while they're here, that's not just wisdom, that's survival. Don't forget that." Then she was walking away down the beach, her white sundress bright against the darkening sand, a solitary figure heading back toward whatever hotel room or rental property or lonely existence waited for her beyond this strange, suspended afternoon. Emma came running back, her feet sandy and wet. "Is she gone?" "Yeah, kiddo, she's gone. I liked her. She's not as scary in person. When she smiles, she looks nice." "Yeah," Ryan agreed, watching Madeline's retreating form. "She does." They stayed until the last tower fell, until the ocean had erased every trace of their castle, leaving only smooth sand and broken shells. Emma collected a few special pieces to take home, chattering about showing them to her mother, about building an even bigger castle next time, about how maybe Ms. Cross could come back and help again. Ryan let her talk, nodding in the right places, but his mind was elsewhere. He kept replaying the afternoon, not the embarrassing beginning, though that would surely haunt him for years, but the middle part, the unexpected part, the moment when Madeline Cross had knelt in the sand and helped his daughter build something beautiful and temporary and completely unnecessary. They packed up their things as the sun touched the horizon, painting the sky in impossible shades of orange and purple. Emma fell asleep in the car on the drive home, her hand clutching the special shells, her face peaceful in that particular way children had when they'd spent a day doing exactly what they wanted. Ryan carried her inside, tucked her into bed without waking her, and then stood in his kitchen staring at nothing while his mind tried to process everything that had happened. His phone buzzed. A message from Madeline, time-stamped 8:47 p.m. "Thank you for this afternoon. Tell Emma the Queen would be proud of her castle. Also, take tomorrow morning off. The Henderson files can wait until afternoon. Spend the morning with your daughter." Ryan read the message 3 times, then a 4th, looking for the catch, the condition, the professional courtesy that was really just another form of obligation. He found none. He typed back, "Thank you. That means more than you know." 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Finally, "I know exactly how much it means. That's why I'm giving it to you." Ryan stood there in his dark kitchen, phone in hand, and felt something shift in his chest. Not the opening of doors or the breaking of walls. Nothing that dramatic. Just a small adjustment, a subtle realignment of his understanding of who Madeline Cross was beneath the professional exterior. She was lonely, he realized. Successful, powerful, feared, respected, and desperately, achingly lonely. Just like him. The tide would come in tomorrow and wash away this strange interlude, returning them both to their proper roles. Boss and employee, ice queen and struggling single dad. The professional distance would reassert itself because it had to, because anything else was impossible. But tonight, just for tonight, Ryan allowed himself to remember. The smile on Madeline's face as she helped Emma with the castle, the weight in her voice when she talked about missing sunshine, the loneliness he'd recognized because it echoed his own. All castles fall, she'd said, but we can build new ones. Ryan looked at his phone one more time, then turned it off. Actually, off, not just silenced, and went to check on Emma. She was sprawled across her bed, still in her beach clothes, probably getting sand all over the sheets. Jennifer would have immediately woken her up for a proper shower and fresh pajamas. Ryan just pulled a light blanket over her and kissed her forehead. Some things were worth enjoying while they lasted, even the imperfect ones, especially those. The morning arrived with the particular cruelty of Florida summer, bright, hot, and unforgiving. Ryan woke to Emma singing in the shower, her off-key rendition of some pop song filtering through the bathroom door. He lay there for a moment, staring at the ceiling fan making its lazy circles, remembering Madeline's message from the night before. Take tomorrow morning off. He'd never taken a morning off, not in 8 months of working under her management. The guilt crept in immediately, that familiar weight of obligation and fear that maybe this was a test. Maybe she was waiting to see if he'd actually do it, waiting to mark him down as unreliable or entitled or whatever other corporate sins could be committed by actually accepting kindness when offered. But then Emma burst out of the bathroom in a cloud of strawberry-scented shampoo, already dressed in her school uniform, and the decision made itself. Pancakes? He asked. Her eyes went wide. On a school day. Special occasion? What's the occasion? Ryan thought about it, about sandcastles and dolphins named Steve and his boss kneeling in the sand with genuine laughter in her eyes. Sometimes you don't need an occasion. Sometimes you just need pancakes. Emma didn't argue with that logic. They took their time with breakfast, real breakfast, not the usual granola bar eaten in the car while racing to beat the school bell. Ryan made chocolate chip pancakes in the shapes of letters, spelling out Emma's name across 3 plates. She drowned them in syrup and chattered about her plans for recess, about the book report due next week, about whether she should invite the new girl Madison to her birthday party, even though Madison had weird opinions about unicorns. What kind of weird opinions? Ryan asked, flipping another batch. She thinks they're just horses with sticks glued to their heads. That's technically not wrong, Emma gasped. Daddy, that's betrayal. You're supposed to be on the unicorn side. I'm on whatever side you're on, kiddo, even when it involves mythical creatures with questionable anatomical modifications. She giggled, syrup on her chin, and Ryan felt that familiar squeeze in his chest, the fierce, protective love that made every sacrifice worth it, every late night and missed event and compromise with Jennifer bearable because it meant moments like this. He drove her to school slowly, taking the long route through the neighborhood where the old oak trees created tunnels of shade over the road. Emma talked the entire way, her voice bright with the particular enthusiasm of 8-year-olds who hadn't yet learned that the world didn't care about their opinions on unicorns, or the injustice of homework, or why pizza should absolutely be considered a breakfast food. Love you, Daddy, she said when he pulled up to the drop-off zone. Love you more, baby girl. Love you most. She kissed his cheek, grabbed her backpack, and bounded toward the school entrance where her best friend Sophia was waiting. They immediately launched into animated conversation, probably about unicorns, and Ryan watched until they disappeared inside. Then he sat in his car in the parent pickup lane and realized he had no idea what to do with himself. A morning off. Actual free time on a Thursday morning when he should be racing to the office, gulping terrible break room coffee, and preparing for whatever deadline Madeline had scheduled. Instead, he was sitting in his aging Honda Civic watching other parents pull away, feeling both liberated and completely unmoored. His phone buzzed. A message from David, his brother, and the only person who'd stayed consistently supportive through the divorce and its aftermath. How's the Clearwater incident? You recover from seeing your boss in her birthday suit? Ryan groaned. He'd made the mistake of calling David last night after putting Emma to bed, needing to process the sheer absurdity of the beach encounter with someone who wouldn't judge. David had laughed so hard he'd started coughing. We're pretending it never happened. Professional courtesy. Right, because that always works. Hey, you coming to the game Saturday? Depends on if Jennifer switches weekends again. She can't keep doing that, man. You have rights. I have a custody agreement that she interprets creatively. Different thing. Ryan started typing another message, then deleted it. David meant well, but he didn't understand. He was happily married to his college sweetheart, 2 kids, a house in the suburbs with a white picket fence that he'd actually painted himself. He lived in a world where custody agreements were theoretical problems, where co-parenting meant deciding which parent took which kid to soccer practice, not navigating the minefield of an ex-wife who viewed every interaction as a battlefield. Instead of responding, Ryan drove to a coffee shop he'd been meaning to try. One of those artisanal places with exposed brick and plants hanging from the ceiling and a menu that required a graduate degree to decode. He ordered something the barista recommended, found a corner table, and pulled out his laptop. The Henderson files waited in his inbox, along with 17 other messages that had accumulated overnight. He opened the first one, read 3 sentences, then closed it. Madeline had given him the morning off. Actually using it felt like an act of rebellion. He switched to his personal email instead. A message from Jennifer's lawyer about adjusting the summer custody schedule. A reminder about Emma's upcoming dental appointment. A promotional email from a toy store advertising princess castles that Emma would absolutely love, and Jennifer would absolutely veto as encouraging unrealistic gender expectations. Ryan closed the laptop. The coffee arrived. Something involving oat milk and lavender that tasted better than it sounded. He sat there drinking it, watching people come and go. Young professionals on their laptops, probably working remotely in jobs that allowed flexibility. Retired couples reading newspapers and holding hands. A mother with twins in a stroller, both kids screaming while she looked like she might join them. Everyone carrying their own weight, their own struggles, their own private architecture of survival. His mind drifted back to the beach, to Madeline kneeling in the sand, that genuine smile transforming her face, to the way she'd listened to Emma's elaborate stories about magical dolphins without a trace of condescension, to the exhaustion he had seen in her eyes when she'd talked about forgetting what sunshine felt like. The Madeline from the beach felt like a different person than the one who ran Monday morning meetings with military precision. But they were the same woman, weren't they? Just different versions, different masks for different situations. He wondered which one was real, or if maybe they both were. His phone buzzed again. This time, Madeline's name on the screen made his stomach clench. Hope you're enjoying your morning. Don't check work email. That's an order. Ryan stared at the message. The words were professional enough, but there was something else underneath, a warmth maybe, or at least an awareness that he was exactly the type to spend his free time catching up on work. He typed back, currently sitting in a coffee shop feeling vaguely guilty about not being productive. The response came quickly. Guilt is unproductive. Drink your coffee and read a book. That's productive enough. Is that corporate policy now? Mandatory coffee breaks and leisure reading? It should be. I'll bring it up at the next board meeting. Ryan caught himself smiling at his phone like a teenager texting his crush. He quickly schooled his expression, glancing around to make sure nobody had noticed. The retired couple 3 tables over were absorbed in their newspapers. The remote workers remained focused on their screens. Nobody cared about his sudden inability to maintain professional distance via text message. Thank you, he typed. For this morning and for yesterday. Both parts of yesterday. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Finally, we're pretending yesterday never happened, remember? The embarrassing part, yes. But the rest was nice, unexpected, but nice. Emma is delightful. She liked you too, said you weren't as scary in person. I'm going to choose to take that as a compliment. You should. Coming from Emma, it's high praise. She once told me her teacher looked like a disappointed giraffe and stood by that assessment for the entire school year. This time the response took longer. I need to get back to actual work. Enjoy your morning, Ryan. See you this afternoon. Ryan noticed the shift. Mr. Cole to Ryan. Yesterday on the beach, she'd used his first name once, tentatively, like testing the weight of it. Now it appeared in a text message, casual and natural, as if the professional distance between them had been permanently reduced by a few crucial inches. He should probably be worried about that. Boundaries existed for reasons. Boss-employee relationships had rules for very good reasons. Letting those lines blur, even slightly, was dangerous territory. But Ryan found he didn't care, or rather he cared less than he probably should. He spent the rest of the morning doing exactly what Madeline had ordered, drinking good coffee, reading the thriller novel he'd been neglecting, and deliberately not thinking about work. By noon, he felt more relaxed than he had in months, a looseness in his shoulders that he hadn't realized had been missing. The office felt different when he arrived at 1 p.m. Or maybe he felt different walking into it. Ryan nodded to the receptionist, grabbed a cup of the terrible break room coffee out of habit, and settled into his cubicle with the Henderson files. He'd been working for maybe 20 minutes when his desk phone rang. "Mr. Cole, could you come to my office, please?" Madeline's voice carried its usual professional crispness, but Ryan thought he detected something else underneath. Amusement? Nervousness? His imagination? "Of course. Give me 2 minutes." He grabbed a notepad, props for looking prepared, and headed toward the executive offices. Madeline's corner office had a view of the bay, floor-to-ceiling windows that showcased Tampa's skyline. He'd been inside exactly 4 times in 8 months, always for performance reviews or crisis meetings. Madeline sat behind her massive desk, perfectly composed in a charcoal gray suit that probably cost more than Ryan's monthly rent. Her hair was pulled back in its usual neat bun. Her expression was professionally neutral. Every trace of the woman from the beach had been carefully erased, except her eyes. Her eyes held something different, a wariness maybe, or an awareness that they were both pretending very hard and neither of them was quite pulling it off. "Close the door, please." Ryan's stomach dropped. Nothing good ever came from closed-door meetings. He complied, then took the seat across from her desk, trying to radiate calm competence while his mind raced through every possible reason she might have called him in. Had she reconsidered the morning off? Was this about the beach? Had someone seen them, reported something to HR? Madeline folded her hands on her desk. "I wanted to discuss yesterday." "We agreed to pretend it never happened," Ryan said quickly. "We agreed to pretend the embarrassing part never happened. The rest requires acknowledgement." "Okay." She took a breath, and Ryan realized with a shock that she was nervous. Madeline Cross, who commanded boardrooms and reduced grown men to stammering children during quarterly reviews, was actually nervous. "I'm not good at this," she said finally, "at being human in front of employees, at showing anything other than professional competence. It's safer that way. Easier." "I understand that. But yesterday, with Emma, building that ridiculous castle and talking about magical dolphins..." She paused, a hint of a smile touching her lips. "I haven't felt that relaxed in years, maybe ever, and I'm not sure how to navigate what that means for us in this context." Ryan chose his words carefully. "It doesn't have to mean anything. We can keep it separate. Beach Madeline and Office Madeline can be completely different people." "Can they?" She leaned back in her chair, studying him. "You saw me, Ryan. Not just physically, though God knows we're both going to be traumatized by that particular image for quite some time, but you saw me. The parts I don't show anyone. The lonely, exhausted, burned-out parts that I've been pretending don't exist." The honesty in her voice made Ryan's chest tight. "And you saw me struggling to be a good father while drowning in work obligations. So we're even. Are we? I don't know." Ryan set down his notepad, decided this conversation required actual human connection instead of corporate pretense. "I've spent 8 months being terrified of you. You've spent 8 months pushing all of us to our limits. Those are our roles, and they've worked well enough. But yesterday showed me that maybe those roles aren't the whole story." Madeline was quiet for a long moment. Outside her window, the bay sparkled in the afternoon sun. A sailboat cut across the water, white against blue. "I transferred here to escape a bad situation," she said finally. "A relationship that ended poorly, a workplace where I'd become someone I didn't like very much. I thought a fresh start meant working harder, being tougher, never showing weakness. I thought if I could just be perfect enough at my job, everything else wouldn't matter." "How's that working out?" She laughed, but it sounded hollow. "I'm 42 years old, Ryan. I have an impressive title, a substantial salary, and absolutely nothing else. I eat dinner alone every night. I work weekends because I have nowhere else to be. I can't remember the last time someone touched me without it being a professional handshake. The vulnerability in her confession made Ryan forget they were boss and employee, forget the power dynamic and the professional boundaries. He saw only a woman admitting to the same bone-deep loneliness that kept him awake at 3 a.m. After my divorce, he said slowly, I convinced myself that being a good father meant sacrificing everything else. My social life, my hobbies, any possibility of dating or relationships. Emma needed me, work needed me, and there was nothing left over for Ryan. Just empty space where a person used to be. And now? Now I'm realizing that maybe running on empty doesn't make me a better father or employee. It just makes me empty. Madeline nodded, understanding evident in her expression. Emma told me something yesterday while we were building the castle. She said that good things don't last forever, so you have to enjoy them while they're here. That's wisdom I've spent 2 decades forgetting. She's smarter than both of us combined. Most children are. Madeline stood, walked to her window, gazed out at the water. I'm going to ask you something completely inappropriate, and you're welcome to say no without any professional repercussions. Ryan's heart started hammering. Okay. Would you like to have dinner with me? Not a work dinner, not a professional networking opportunity, just dinner. 2 people who accidentally saw each other's humanity and are trying to figure out what to do with that information. The question hung in the air between them, weighted with implications and possibilities, and a dozen different ways this could go catastrophically wrong. Ryan thought about HR policies and workplace dynamics, and Jennifer's lawyer finding out and using it against him in custody negotiations. Then he thought about Madeline kneeling in the sand, laughing at Emma's stories about queens who ate only blue food. Yes, he said, I'd like that. She turned from the window, and relief washed across her face so clearly that Ryan wondered if she'd actually expected him to say no. Tomorrow night? There's a small Italian place near the waterfront. Very quiet, very discreet. I'll need to arrange childcare. Emma's with her mother this weekend, but tomorrow's my night. Of course. If you can't find anyone, I'll find someone. Ryan pulled out his phone, already mentally running through his limited list of available babysitters. David and his wife lived 40 minutes away, but they'd do it if he asked. What time? 7:30? I'll be there. They stared at each other for a moment, the weight of what they'd just agreed to settling between them. Then Madeline's phone buzzed, and the spell broke. She glanced at it, her expression shifting back into professional mode. I have a meeting in 5 minutes. The Henderson files, you'll have them ready by end of day? Already done. I'll send them over within the hour. Thank you, Mr. Cole. The return to formality felt jarring, but Ryan understood the necessity. They were stepping into uncharted territory, and maintaining some semblance of professional boundaries, at least in public, was probably wise. He stood, picked up his forgotten notepad. Thank you, Ms. Cross. As he reached the door, she called out, Ryan? He turned back. Thank you for saying yes. I wasn't sure you would. I wasn't sure I would either, he admitted, but I'm glad I did. Walking back to his cubicle, Ryan felt like he was floating slightly above the ground. This was insane. This was dangerous. This was probably going to blow up in his face in spectacular fashion. But for the first time in 8 months, maybe the first time since the divorce, he felt something other than exhausted obligation. He felt alive, nervous and excited and terrified, but alive. His phone buzzed with the text from David. So you going to answer me about Saturday's game or what? Ryan typed back. Can you and Michelle watch Emma tomorrow night? I have plans. What kind of plans? You never have plans, the kind that require adult supervision and possibly bail money if things go wrong. This I gotta hear. Call me. Ryan did, escaping to the parking lot where he could talk without being overheard. David answered on the second ring. Okay, spill. What's happening tomorrow night that requires your responsible big brother to babysit? I have a date. Silence on the other end. Then, I'm sorry, I must have misheard you. Did you say you have a date? You? Ryan Cole, who once told me dating was an unnecessary complication and you were married to single fatherhood. I'm aware of my own previous statements, thank you. Who is she? How'd you meet? Wait, David's voice filled with glee. Is this about the beach incident? Did you seriously ask out your boss after seeing her naked? She asked me, actually, and can we please stop referring to the beach incident? I'm trying very hard to maintain some dignity here. Dignity? Brother, you lost dignity the moment that swimsuit flew away. Now you're in full-on romantic comedy territory. This is amazing. Michelle's gonna lose her mind. Can you watch Emma or not? Of course we can watch Emma. We love Emma. Plus, this gives me unlimited material to give you shit about for the rest of your natural life. Win-win. Ryan pinched the bridge of his nose. I'm regretting this call already. Too late. Commitment made. But seriously, man, you sure about this? Your boss? That's complicated. I know it's complicated. Jennifer finds out, she's going to use it in court. I know that too. And you're doing it anyway? Ryan thought about Madeline's confession of loneliness, about the exhaustion in her eyes, about the way she'd smiled at Emma. He thought about his own emptiness, the hollow feeling that had become so familiar he'd stopped noticing it. Yeah, he said, I'm doing it anyway. Then you better make it count. Wear the blue shirt. Women love the blue shirt. I'll take your fashion advice under consideration. And Ryan? David's voice turned serious. Be careful, okay? I know you're lonely. I know the divorce sucked. But don't mistake gratitude or proximity for something it's not. Make sure this is real before you risk everything. It's one dinner, David, not a marriage proposal. One dinner is how it starts. Trust me, I married the girl I had one dinner with. Now look at me. 2 kids, a mortgage, and a wife who forces me to watch reality TV about people buying houses they can't afford. Sounds terrible. It's the best thing that ever happened to me. David paused. That's what I want for you too, brother. The best thing. Just make sure you're choosing it for the right reasons. After they hung up, Ryan sat in his car watching other employees come and go from the building. Through the 5th floor window, he could see Madeline's office, her silhouette moving behind the glass as she paced during what was probably a conference call. Was this the right reason? Was there even such a thing as a right reason when it came to matters of loneliness and connection and 2 people who'd accidentally seen past each other's armor? He didn't know. But tomorrow night, over Italian food and quiet conversation, maybe he'd start to find out. The afternoon passed in a blur of work that Ryan completed with unusual efficiency, fueled by nervous energy and the constant awareness of what he'd agreed to. He sent the Henderson files to Madeline by 3 p.m., received a terse "thank you" in response, and threw himself into preparing for next week's client presentation. At 5:30, he headed home to an empty apartment that always felt too quiet on Jennifer's custody days. He microwaved leftovers, ate them standing over the sink, then spent an hour on the phone with Emma, who wanted to tell him every single detail about her day. The spelling test she'd aced, the dodgeball game at recess, Madison's continued unicorn skepticism. Love you, baby girl, and he said when Jennifer's voice in the background announced it was bedtime. Love you more, Daddy. Are we going to build another sandcastle soon? Definitely. Maybe this weekend when you're back with me. Can Ms. Cross come again? She was really good at towers. Ryan's throat tightened. Maybe. We'll see. After Emma hung up, he sat in his quiet living room and wondered what the hell he was doing. Tomorrow night he was having dinner with his boss. The woman who controlled his career, his livelihood, his ability to pay child support and keep joint custody. The woman who, 48 hours ago, had been nothing more than a source of workplace anxiety and stress. Now she was a person, complex, lonely, vulnerable, human. That made everything so much more dangerous and so much more necessary. Ryan's phone buzzed one more time before bed. Another message from Madeline. Second thoughts are normal. If you've changed your mind about tomorrow, I understand. He stared at the text, thumb hovering over the keyboard. This was his out. He could politely decline, cite professional concerns, return to their previous dynamic where everything was clear and safe and completely devoid of human connection. Instead, he typed, "No second thoughts. See you at 7:30. Her response came immediately. Good. Sleep well, Ryan. He didn't sleep well. He tossed and turned, his mind running through every possible scenario tomorrow night could bring. But when he finally drifted off sometime after midnight, he dreamed of sunshine and sandcastles and Madeline's genuine smile. And for once, his dreams didn't feel like escape. They felt like possibility. Friday crawled by with the particular torture of anticipated events. Every hour stretched longer than the last. Every meeting dragged on eternally, and Ryan found himself checking his watch with increasing frequency as 7:30 approached, like both a promise and a threat. He changed his shirt 3 times that morning before settling on the blue one David had recommended, then immediately second-guessed the choice. Was blue too casual? Too obvious? Did it matter what color shirt he wore to dinner with a woman who'd already seen him in swim trunks covered in cartoon sharks? The office felt different too, charged with an awareness that made every interaction with Madeline fraught with unspoken tension. She'd walked past his cubicle twice during the morning, both times offering nothing more than a professional nod, but Ryan swore he caught something in her eyes. Nervousness matching his own, maybe, or anticipation, or the same creeping doubt that they were making a spectacular mistake. At lunch, he escaped to his car and called David. "I can't do this," Ryan said without preamble. "Good afternoon to you too, brother, and yes, you absolutely can." "No, I really can't. This is insane. She's my boss. I have a custody arrangement to protect. What am I thinking?" David's sigh carried the weight of long-suffering patience. You're thinking that you've been lonely for 2 years and someone finally saw you as a person instead of just Emma's dad or Jennifer's ex or that guy from accounting, project management, whatever. Point is, you're allowed to want things for yourself. You're allowed to be scared and do it anyway. What if it ruins everything? My job, my relationship with Emma, my... Ryan. David's voice turned firm. What if it doesn't? What if this is actually the beginning of something good? You ever consider that possibility? Ryan leaned his head against the steering wheel. Not really, no. That's because you've been in survival mode so long, you forgot what living looks like. Go to dinner, talk to the woman, see what happens. Worst case scenario, it's awkward and you both pretend it never happened. Best case, don't. Best case, you remember what it feels like to be happy. After they hung up, Ryan sat in his car watching clouds drift across the Tampa sky. David meant well, but he didn't understand the stakes. Happy wasn't a luxury Ryan could afford, not when happiness meant risk, and risk meant potentially losing the fragile stability he'd built for Emma. But then again, was this really stability? Working himself to exhaustion, eating dinner alone, falling asleep to the sound of his own loneliness. Was that the example he wanted to set for his daughter? That life meant endurance, sacrifice, settling for empty existence because anything more was too dangerous to attempt? The afternoon meetings blurred together in a haze of PowerPoint presentations and budget discussions. Ryan contributed when required, nodded at appropriate moments, and tried not to stare at Madeline during the quarterly review session. She ran the meeting with her usual crisp efficiency, nothing in her demeanor suggesting that in a few hours they'd be sitting across from each other in an Italian restaurant trying to figure out what came next. At 5 o'clock, Ryan headed home with plenty of time to shower, change, panic, change again, and generally question every life decision that had led to this moment. David and Michelle were picking up Emma directly from Jennifer's house, which meant Ryan had the apartment to himself and far too much time to overthink. He stood in front of his closet in a towel, staring at shirts he'd worn 100 times that suddenly all looked wrong. The blue one David recommended. A gray button-down Jennifer had bought him 3 Christmases ago. A black polo that made him look like he was trying too hard. Nothing felt right. His phone buzzed with a text from Madeline. Still planning on tonight? No pressure if you've reconsidered. Ryan looked at the message, at the easy out she was offering, at the escape hatch that would return them both to safe, professional distance. His thumb hovered over the keyboard. Then he thought about her smile on the beach, about the way she'd listened to Emma's stories, about the loneliness in her voice when she'd confessed to eating dinner alone every night. "On my way in an hour," he typed back. "Looking forward to it. Me too. See you soon." Ryan pulled on the blue shirt, ran gel through his hair, checked his reflection one more time. The man staring back at him looked nervous and uncertain, and more alive than he'd appeared in months. Good enough. The drive to the restaurant took 20 minutes through early evening traffic. The Italian place Madeline had chosen sat tucked away on a quiet street near the waterfront, the kind of establishment that didn't advertise because it didn't need to. Soft light glowed through curtained windows. A hand-painted sign declared it Bella Notte in elegant script. Ryan parked, sat in his car for a full minute building courage, then forced himself out before he could talk himself into fleeing. The evening air carried the salt-sweet smell of the bay mixed with garlic and basil from the restaurant. Inside, warm lighting and quiet conversation created an atmosphere of intimate comfort. Madeline sat at a corner table, and Ryan's breath caught at the sight of her. She'd traded her usual business attire for a simple navy dress that softened her corporate edges without diminishing her presence. Her hair fell loose around her shoulders instead of pulled back in its typical severe bun. She looked beautiful and nervous and utterly different from the woman who commanded boardrooms. She saw him and smiled. That real smile from the beach, not the professional one from the office, and whatever doubts Ryan had been harboring dissolved like sugar in water. "Hi," he said, suddenly aware of how inadequate that greeting was for the magnitude of this moment. "Hi yourself." Madeline gestured to the seat across from her. "I ordered wine. Hope that's okay." I needed something to do with my hands while I waited and tried not to panic. "You're panicking." "Absolutely terrified. You? Considering faking a medical emergency and running away?" "Briefly, yes." They laughed, and the tension broke just enough to breathe. Ryan sat down, accepted the wine glass she poured for him, and tried to remember how to have a normal conversation with another human being that wasn't his 8-year-old daughter or his well-meaning brother. "Thank you for coming," Madeline said. "I half convinced myself you'd change your mind." "I almost did, multiple times. David talked me off the ledge." "David's your brother?" "Yeah. Happily married, 2 kids, lives the American dream in a suburb with good schools and a lawn he actually mows himself. He thinks I'm insane for being here." "Is he wrong?" Ryan considered the question seriously. "Probably not. This is objectively crazy. You're my boss. I have a complicated custody situation. You could fire me tomorrow and I'd have no recourse. Every reasonable part of my brain is screaming that this is a terrible idea. And yet here you are." "Here I am." Ryan took a sip of wine, gathering courage. "What about you? What are the reasonable parts of your brain saying?" Madeline traced the rim of her wine glass with one finger, her expression thoughtful. "That I'm risking a professional reputation I've spent 20 years building. That workplace relationships rarely end well, especially when there's a power imbalance. That I should have stuck to my original plan of being a successful solitary workaholic until retirement or death, whichever came first. Sounds lonely. It is lonely. Unbearably so. That's why I'm here despite every rational argument against it." She looked up, met his eyes. 2 days ago on that beach, I remembered what it felt like to be seen, not as a boss or a colleague or a woman in a suit, just as a person. I haven't felt that in so long I'd forgotten it was possible. The honesty in her voice made Ryan's chest tight. Emma has that effect on people. She sees the world without all the filters adults build up. It's either enlightening or terrifying depending on the day. She's remarkable. You've done an incredible job with her. I'm stumbling through parenthood, making it up as I go, but thank you. Ryan paused, then decided if they were being honest, he might as well go all in. "Can I ask you something, and you can tell me if it's too personal? After the beach incident, I think we're past worrying about too personal." "Fair point." Ryan gathered his thoughts. "Yesterday in your office, you mentioned transferring here to escape a bad situation. What happened?" Madeline was quiet for a long moment, her fingers still tracing patterns on her wine glass. The restaurant hummed with quiet conversation around them, insulating their corner in a bubble of privacy. "His name was Richard," she said finally. "We worked together at the Atlanta office. He was charming, successful, said all the right things about wanting a partner, not just a girlfriend. We dated for 3 years. I thought we were building toward marriage, family, everything I'd put off for my career." She took a drink of wine before continuing. "Then I got the promotion to VP. Suddenly Richard wasn't so supportive anymore. My success threatened him. He started making comments about my ambition, my work hours, how I was becoming one of those career women who forget how to be feminine. The more I achieved, the smaller he tried to make me feel." "I'm sorry," Ryan said quietly. "Don't be. The ending was the best thing that could have happened to me. He gave me an ultimatum. Choose the promotion or choose him. I chose myself. Then I transferred here to get away from the whispers and the pitying looks and the constant reminders of what I'd given up for my career. But you didn't give up anything. You chose not to diminish yourself for someone else's ego. Madeline's eyes widened slightly, something vulnerable flickering across her face. That's exactly what my therapist said. Took me 8 months of sessions to believe it. Well, your therapist is right, and Richard sounds like he was intimidated by your success because he knew he couldn't match it. Probably. But the experience taught me to keep walls up, be professional, be perfect. Never let anyone close enough to use your vulnerability against you. She smiled sadly. Hence the Ice Queen reputation I'm apparently famous for. You're not as icy as people think. You're just protected. And you? Madeline turned the question back to him. What's your story? You mentioned the divorce, but not what led to it. Ryan swallowed hard. This was the part he usually avoided. The narrative he'd condensed into easy explanations about growing apart or wanting different things. But Madeline had offered real honesty, and she deserved the same in return. Jennifer and I got married young, 24, fresh out of college, convinced we had everything figured out. For a while it worked. We had similar goals, similar timelines. Get married, build careers, buy a house, have a baby. We checked all the boxes. The waiter appeared, took their dinner orders with practiced discretion, and disappeared again. Ryan continued. But somewhere between checking boxes and actually living our lives, we forgot to stay connected. Jennifer threw herself into being the perfect mother. Pinterest-worthy birthday parties, organic homemade baby food, developmental milestones tracked with scientific precision. I threw myself into work, convincing myself that being a good provider was the same as being a good husband and father. What changed? Emma started kindergarten. Suddenly, Jennifer had time to look at our marriage and realize we'd become roommates who occasionally had stilted conversations about whose turn it was to do laundry. She wanted counseling. I was too proud or too scared to admit we needed help. By the time I agreed to try, she'd already made up her mind. Ryan's voice roughened with emotion he usually kept buried. The worst part wasn't the divorce itself. It was realizing I'd let the most important relationships in my life deteriorate because I was too focused on appearing successful to actually be present. Jennifer moved on pretty quickly, started dating someone new within 6 months. Meanwhile, I'm still trying to figure out how to be a single father who doesn't screw up the one good thing that came from my failed marriage. Madeline reached across the table, covered his hand with hers. The contact sent electricity through Ryan's nervous system. The first intentional touch from another adult in longer than he cared to remember. Emma adores you, Madeline said softly. That tells me everything I need to know about what kind of father you are. She deserves better than a dad who answers work emails during beach days. She deserves a dad who's trying his best while carrying an impossible weight, which is exactly what you are. Madeline's thumb traced small circles on the back of his hand. We're both so hard on ourselves, aren't we? Holding ourselves to standards of perfection while refusing to extend the same grace we'd offer anyone else. When did you get so wise? Expensive therapy and 2 years of eating dinner alone. It gives you time to think. Their food arrived, pasta for Ryan, risotto for Madeline, and they ate while conversation flowed more easily than Ryan had imagined possible. They talked about Emma's upcoming birthday party, about Madeline's complicated relationship with her own mother, about the absurdity of office politics and the small tyrannies of corporate life. They argued good-naturedly about movies and music, discovered a shared love of terrible reality TV neither would admit to watching, and laughed over stories of workplace disasters they'd survived. The more they talked, the more Ryan realized how little he'd actually known Madeline despite working under her for 8 months. The Ice Queen persona was exactly that. A persona carefully constructed to protect the woman underneath who'd been hurt and disappointed and learned that vulnerability came with too high a price. But she was being vulnerable now. With him. The significance of that wasn't lost on Ryan. Can I ask you something? Madeline said as they were finishing their entrees. And please be honest, even if you think it might hurt my feelings. Okay? The beach incident aside, did you actually like me at all before Wednesday? Or was I just the demanding boss you complained about to your brother? Ryan winced. You heard Emma mention that, didn't you? She's 8. She has no filter. It's one of her more endearing qualities. I didn't dislike you, Ryan said carefully. I was intimidated by you. There's a difference. You have this presence, this certainty, that made me feel like I was constantly on the verge of disappointing you. Every deadline felt like a test I might fail. Every meeting felt like a performance review. That sounds exhausting. It was, but Ryan paused, choosing his words. After the beach, after seeing you laugh with Emma and admit to being lonely and just be human for a few hours, I realized that maybe the person I was intimidated by was the armor, not the woman wearing it. Madeline's eyes glistened slightly in the candlelight. No one's ever put it quite like that before. Is it accurate? Devastatingly so. She dabbed at her eyes with her napkin. God, I'm going to cry at dinner on our first date. This is going so well. Is that what this is? A date? What else would you call it? Ryan considered. Two lonely people sharing a meal and trying to figure out if connection is still possible? That's very poetic, but I think date is simpler. Fair enough, Ryan smiled. Then yes, this is going very well for a first date. Tears of emotional revelation are definitely a good sign. They laughed and Madeline dabbed at her eyes again, her composure cracking in ways that only made her more beautiful. The waiter cleared their plates and presented dessert menus, which they waved away in favor of coffee and continued conversation. So what happens now? Madeline asked once they were alone again. Monday morning, we go back to being boss and employee? Pretend this never happened? Is that what you want? I asked you first. Ryan leaned back in his chair, studying the woman across from him. Madeline Cross, VP of Regional Operations, the person who controlled his professional future, but also just Madeline, who ate dinner alone and forgot what sunshine felt like and kneeled in the sand to help his daughter build castles. I want to see where this goes, he said. I want to have more dinners and more conversations and figure out if what I'm feeling right now is real or just the novelty of someone showing interest after 2 years of solitude. But I also have Emma to think about, and a custody arrangement that Jennifer's lawyer would love to complicate, and a career I can't afford to jeopardize. So we're practical adults with responsibilities and complications. Exactly. But you still want to try? Yeah, I do. You? Madeline's smile held equal parts hope and fear. I spent 2 years convinced that relationships weren't worth the risk. That staying safe behind my walls was easier than gambling on someone who might ultimately resent my success or demand I choose between my career and my personal life. And then I met your daughter on a beach and remembered that some things are worth the risk. Emma does have that effect. It's not just Emma. Madeline's voice dropped to something intimate and raw. It's you, Ryan. The way you see me. The way you make me feel like maybe I don't have to choose between being successful and being human. The words hung between them, heavy with meaning and promise, and all the ways this could go wrong. Ryan reached across the table, took Madeline's hand in his, felt her fingers intertwine with his own. We take this slow, he said. Keep it quiet at work until we figure out what it is and if it's sustainable. No grand gestures or public declarations, just two people trying to build something good while navigating all the complications life's thrown at us. That sounds remarkably reasonable for someone who saw his boss naked 3 days ago. Ryan choked on his coffee. Are we ever going to move past that? Never. I'm going to bring it up at our wedding just to watch you turn that particular shade of red again. The word wedding should have terrified him. Instead, Ryan found himself smiling. Pretty confident for a first date. I told you, expensive therapy. I've learned not to waste time pretending I don't want things. Madeline squeezed his hand. But slow is good. Careful is smart. We build this like Emma builds her castles, one tower at a time, making sure the foundation is solid before we add the next piece. They stayed at the restaurant until the staff started giving subtle hints about closing time. The walk to their cars stretched longer than it needed to, both of them reluctant to let the evening end. The waterfront gleamed under streetlights, the bay a dark mirror reflecting the city's glow. Thank you for tonight, Madeline said when they reached her car. For being honest, for being willing to try despite all the very good reasons not to. Thank you for asking me, for seeing past the terrified employee to the person underneath. They stood there in the parking lot, the space between them charged with uncertainty and possibility. Ryan wanted to kiss her, had wanted to since she'd smiled at him over dinner, but something held him back. This was too new, too fragile. Better to move carefully than risk shattering what they were building. Madeline seemed to sense his hesitation. She leaned in, pressed a soft kiss to his cheek, then pulled back with a smile that made his heart race. "Good night, Ryan. I'll see you Monday." Monday, right, work. The return to reality felt jarring. That's going to be weird, isn't it? Probably, but we'll figure it out. She opened her car door, paused. "And Ryan? Thank you for wearing the blue shirt. It's a good color on you." She drove away before he could respond, leaving Ryan standing in the parking lot with a smile he couldn't suppress and a feeling in his chest that might have been hope or terror, or some complicated combination of both. The drive home passed in a blur of replaying conversations and analyzing moments and trying to process the fact that he'd just had dinner with his boss, and it had felt like the most natural thing in the world. His phone showed 3 texts from David, increasingly demanding updates, but Ryan ignored them in favor of the lingering warmth of Madeline's hand in his. His apartment felt different when he walked in, less empty somehow, despite being exactly as he'd left it. Ryan stood in his kitchen, the same kitchen where he'd microwaved countless lonely dinners, and realized something had shifted. The loneliness was still there, would probably always be there to some degree, but it no longer felt permanent, no longer felt like his defining characteristic. He texted David. "Made it home. Still employed. Possibly insane, but in a good way." The response came immediately. "Details. Now. Tomorrow. Right now, I just want to sit with this for a while. Proud of you, brother. Whatever happens, you took the risk. That's what counts." Ryan sat on his couch, stared at his phone, and pulled up the conversation with Madeline. Their messages from earlier in the day seemed like relics from another lifetime. He typed out 3 different messages: witty observations, heartfelt thank yous, anxious questions about Monday, and deleted them all. Finally, he settled on, "Made it home. Thank you for tonight. I haven't felt this hopeful in a long time." Her response came 5 minutes later. "Me neither. Sleep well, Ryan. Dream of sandcastles and magical dolphins, and queens who eat only blue food? Especially them." Ryan fell asleep on his couch, still holding his phone, a smile on his face, and for the first time in 2 years, his dreams weren't filled with anxiety about custody arrangements or work deadlines or all the ways he was failing at life. Instead, he dreamed of building something new, something solid, something worth the risk of reaching for it. Monday morning arrived with the weight of consequences Ryan hadn't fully considered on Friday night. He sat in his car in the office parking lot, watching colleagues file through the entrance, and felt his stomach twist with anxiety that had nothing to do with work deadlines and everything to do with the woman waiting somewhere inside that building. The weekend had passed in a strange limbo of normal routine, punctuated by constant awareness of what had changed. Emma had returned Saturday morning full of stories about her time with Uncle David and Aunt Michelle, oblivious to the seismic shift in her father's emotional landscape. They'd built another sandcastle on Sunday, just the 2 of them this time, and Emma had asked twice when Ms. Cross might join them again. "She's busy with work stuff," Ryan had said, which was technically true and also a massive oversimplification of the complicated dance he and Madeline were now attempting. They texted sporadically over the weekend, nothing too heavy, just small observations and shared jokes that felt both thrilling and terrifying in their intimacy. But texting was easy. Texting happened in private, insulated from judgment and office politics and HR policies about workplace relationships. Walking into that building meant facing reality. Ryan forced himself out of the car, briefcase in hand, and joined the Monday morning migration. The elevator ride to the 5th floor felt longer than usual, every floor ding making his pulse quicken. When the doors opened, he stepped into the familiar landscape of cubicles and conference rooms and tried to act like everything was exactly the same as it had been a week ago. Madeline's office door was closed, her assistant informed him when he passed. Early meeting with the executive team. Ryan felt equal parts relief and disappointment. Relief that he'd have time to settle in before facing her. Disappointment that he'd have to wait to see if Friday night's connection survived the harsh fluorescent lighting of corporate reality. He made it through 2 emails before his desk phone rang. "Mr. Cole, Ms. Cross would like to see you in her office at 9:30. Her assistant's voice carried the same professional neutrality it always had, giving no indication that anything had changed. "Of course, I'll be there." Ryan spent the next hour oscillating between productive work and complete distraction. He revised the same paragraph in a client proposal 4 times, caught himself staring at his computer screen without actually reading anything, and jumped every time someone walked past his cubicle. At 9:28, he gathered his notebook and headed toward Madeline's office with the careful composure of someone walking a tightrope over shark-infested waters. Her assistant waved him through. Ryan knocked once, heard Madeline's "come in," and stepped into her domain. She sat behind her desk in a dark green suit that made her eyes look almost emerald, her hair pulled back in the severe bun he'd grown accustomed to over the past months. Every trace of the woman from Friday night had been carefully erased, replaced by the professional mask of Madeline Cross, VP of Regional Operations. "Mr. Cole, please close the door and have a seat." Ryan's stomach dropped. The formality in her voice, the careful distance. This was not the woman who'd held his hand across a restaurant table and talked about building castles one tower at a time. He sat, gripping his notebook like a lifeline. Madeline studied him for a long moment, her expression unreadable. Then, so quickly he almost missed it, she smiled. A real smile, small and private, just for him. "Relax," she said quietly. "You look like you're expecting me to fire you." "Are you?" "Not today." The smile lingered. "Though you should probably work on your poker face. Everyone in the building is going to know something's changed if you keep looking at me like I'm about to pronounce sentence." Ryan exhaled, some of the tension leaving his shoulders. "Sorry, I'm not great at this." "This?" "Whatever this is, navigating personal feelings in a professional context. Pretending that Friday night didn't happen while also trying to honor that it did." Madeline's expression softened. "I'm not great at it either. I spent all weekend rehearsing how to interact with you this morning, and I still don't think I have it right." She paused, glanced toward the door to ensure it was fully closed. "But we need to establish some ground rules for both our sakes." "Agreed. At work we maintain professional boundaries. I'm your boss, you're my employee. No favoritism, no special treatment. The projects I assign you, the deadlines I set, those don't change because we've had dinner together. I wouldn't expect them to. And we keep this quiet. Not because I'm ashamed or trying to hide anything, but because workplace relationships come with scrutiny neither of us needs right now, especially given the power dynamic." Madeline's voice carried a weight that suggested she'd thought about this extensively. "If we're going to explore whatever this is between us, we do it carefully, discreetly. We don't give anyone ammunition to use against either of us." "That makes sense." Ryan hesitated, then asked the question that had been eating at him all weekend. "But are we? Exploring this, I mean? Friday was incredible, but in the cold light of a Monday morning, are we really doing this?" Madeline stood, walked around her desk, and leaned against it directly in front of him. The gesture brought her close enough that Ryan could smell her perfume, something subtle and expensive that he'd noticed on Friday night. "Ryan, I'm 42 years old. I don't have time to waste on things I'm not serious about." Her voice dropped to something intimate despite the professional setting. "Friday night wasn't just a nice dinner for me. It was the first time in years I felt genuinely connected to another person. So yes, we're really doing this. But we're doing it smart." Relief and anxiety warred in Ryan's chest. "Smart. Right. I can do smart. Can you?" She raised an eyebrow, teasing. "Because you're looking at me right now in a way that is decidedly not smart for an office setting." Ryan jerked his gaze away, heat flooding his face. "Sorry. I'll work on that." "Don't apologize. Just be careful." Madeline moved back behind her desk, the professional distance reasserting itself. "Now, regarding the Henderson account, I need you to coordinate with the Atlanta office on their Q3 projections. There's a call scheduled for Wednesday at 2 p.m. that I'd like you to lead." The abrupt shift to work topics should have felt jarring, but instead Ryan found it grounding. This was the dance they'd have to perfect, moving between personal and professional with enough grace that no one noticed the transition. They spent the next 20 minutes discussing actual work, and Ryan marveled at how Madeline could compartmentalize so effectively. She challenged his ideas, pushed back on his timeline estimates, and demanded better solutions with the same intensity she'd always brought to these discussions. Nothing had softened. Nothing had changed. Except everything had changed. When their meeting concluded and Ryan stood to leave, Madeline called out, "Mr. Cole?" He turned back. "Thursday night, there's a gallery opening downtown. Contemporary art, wine, minimal crowds. Would you be interested? Is that a professional networking event, or it's a second date disguised as a professional networking event? I have 2 tickets and a desire to spend time with you outside this office, but we'd be in public, so we'd need to maintain appropriate boundaries." Ryan smiled despite himself. "You've really thought this through, haven't you?" "I told you, expensive therapy. I've learned to plan." Madeline's expression turned uncertain. "Is that too much? Too fast?" "You can say no. Thursday works. Emma's with Jennifer, and I promise to maintain appropriate boundaries in public." "Good. I'll send you the details." Ryan left her office feeling like he'd survived some crucial test, though he wasn't entirely sure what the test had measured or whether he'd actually passed. His colleagues went about their Monday routines, oblivious to the transformation happening in their midst. He was just Ryan Cole, project manager, same as always. Except he wasn't the same. He carried a secret now. A connection that felt both precious and precarious. Every interaction with Madeline for the rest of the day required careful calibration, professional enough to avoid suspicion, but warm enough to acknowledge what existed between them. It was exhausting. By Wednesday, Ryan had developed a system. Morning meetings were strictly business, eye contact minimal, questions focused, zero personal commentary. Afternoon check-ins allowed for slightly more warmth, though nothing that would raise eyebrows. Texts happened only in the evenings, after work hours, maintaining the fiction that their relationship existed in a separate sphere from their professional lives. The Wednesday afternoon call with the Atlanta office went smoothly, with Madeline sitting in as an observer. She asked pointed questions, challenged some of Ryan's projections, and at one point disagreed with his approach strongly enough that Ryan wondered if she was deliberately establishing distance for the benefit of the Atlanta team on the call. Afterward, she sent him a text. "You handled that well. Sorry for pushing back so hard on the timeline. Needed to make sure no one suspects I'm going soft on you." "You were right to push back," he responded. "The timeline was optimistic. I'll revise it. You're allowed to defend your ideas, you know. I won't hold it against you personally if you argue with me professionally. Getting into arguments with my boss seems like a bad strategy. Getting into arguments with your girlfriend might be worse. Good thing I'm not that. Yet." Ryan stared at his phone, his heart doing complicated things at the word girlfriend. They hadn't defined this thing between them, had deliberately avoided labels and expectations. But seeing it there in text form, casual and presumptive and terrifying, made it real in a way Friday night's dinner hadn't quite achieved. "Is that what we're heading toward?" he typed. "I don't know, but I'd like to find out." Thursday, at the gallery. "We'll see how we navigate being in public together." Thursday arrived carrying the particular anxiety of anticipated exposure. The gallery opening was a professional event. People from their industry would be there, possibly even colleagues from Morrison and Associates. Ryan and Madeline would have to interact as boss and employee, while somehow also being 2 people exploring a relationship. Ryan changed his shirt 3 times again, this time settling on a charcoal button-down that split the difference between casual and formal. He arrived at the gallery 15 minutes early and immediately regretted it. Standing alone among abstract sculptures and geometric paintings made him feel exposed and obvious. Madeline appeared exactly on time, elegant in a black dress that managed to be both professional and stunning. She saw him across the room, acknowledged him with a subtle nod, then proceeded to ignore him completely for the next 20 minutes while she circulated among the other attendees. Ryan watched her work the room with practiced grace, smiling at the right people, laughing at appropriate moments, discussing art she probably had no particular interest in with the kind of engaged curiosity that made everyone feel important. This was Madeline in her element, commanding attention without demanding it, professional and poised and completely in control. He was so absorbed in watching her that he didn't notice someone approaching until a familiar voice said, "Ryan Cole. Didn't expect to see you at an art gallery on a Thursday night." Ryan turned to find Marcus Chen, a senior project manager from the 3rd floor, who Ryan occasionally collaborated with on cross-departmental initiatives. Marcus held a wine glass and wore an expression of friendly curiosity. "Hey, Marcus. Yeah, I'm trying to expand my cultural horizons. Or at least pretend I understand contemporary art. Marcus laughed. Same. My wife dragged me here. She's convinced that appreciating art will make me a more well-rounded person. Jury's still out. He gestured toward a sculpture that appeared to be a twisted mass of metal and glass. What do you think that's supposed to represent? Existential dread? The futility of human connection? A very aggressive lawn ornament? I was going to say a car accident, but yours sounds more sophisticated. They talked for a few minutes, safe small talk about work and weekend plans and the absurdity of art gallery wine prices. Ryan was actually enjoying the conversation when Madeline drifted into their orbit, her timing so perfect it couldn't have been accidental. Mr. Chen, good to see you. Her voice carried its usual professional warmth, friendly but not overly familiar. And Mr. Cole, I didn't realize you were interested in contemporary art. Trying to broaden my horizons, Miss Cross. Admirable. Though I suspect you're both here for the free wine more than the artistic enrichment. Marcus laughed. Guilty as charged, though my wife would kill me for admitting it. They chatted for a few minutes about safe, boring things, the gallery's renovation, upcoming projects at work, the weather. Anyone watching would have seen three colleagues making polite conversation at a professional event. They wouldn't have noticed the way Madeline's hand brushed Ryan's arm when she gestured toward a painting, or the way her eyes lingered on him just a fraction longer than professional courtesy required, or the subtle smile that played at her lips when he made a dry observation about the artist's use of negative space. It was a masterclass in public discretion, and Ryan found himself both impressed and frustrated by how well Madeline could mask her feelings. Marcus eventually excused himself to find his wife, leaving Ryan and Madeline standing side by side, ostensibly examining a canvas covered in aggressive slashes of red and black paint. You're good at this, Ryan said quietly, keeping his voice low enough that nearby conversations would cover it. At what? Acting like I'm just another employee, like Friday night didn't happen. Madeline's expression didn't change, but her voice softened. Would you prefer I throw myself at you in front of our colleagues? Because I can do that too, though I suspect it would complicate Monday morning considerably. Point taken. This is harder for me than it looks. She tilted her head, studying the painting. I want to touch you, want to lean into you and feel your arm around my waist, and stop pretending that my heart doesn't race every time you walk into a room. But I'm protecting us. Both of us. I know, I'm sorry. I'm not criticizing, just adjusting. It's okay to find this difficult. I do too. Madeline glanced around, ensuring no one was within hearing distance. Come with me. There's a smaller gallery in the back. Fewer people. She walked away without waiting for confirmation, trusting Ryan to follow at a discreet distance. He counted to 30, then meandered through the crowd as if randomly exploring, eventually finding his way to a smaller room where Madeline stood alone in front of a series of photographs. Black and white images of abandoned buildings slowly being reclaimed by nature. Better? She asked when he joined her. Much. Though we should probably talk about art in case someone walks in. Or we could actually talk about art. That one. She pointed to a photograph of a factory floor where tree saplings pushed through cracked concrete. That's my favorite. The way nature refuses to surrender even when civilization tries to erase it. There's something hopeful about it. Ryan studied the image, seeing what she meant. It's about resilience. Oh, everything worth surviving is about resilience. Madeline's voice carried layers of meaning. We build these structures, marriages, careers, identities, and convince ourselves they're permanent. Then life happens. Divorce, betrayal, loneliness. The structures crack and fall apart. But the question isn't whether they'll break. It's what grows in the ruins afterward. Is that what we're doing? Growing in the ruins? Maybe, or maybe we're building something new from materials we salvaged from the wreckage. She turned to face him fully, close enough now that he could see the gold flecks in her green eyes. I'm terrified of this, Ryan, of wanting something and risking everything I've built for the possibility it might work out. But I'm more terrified of looking back in 10 years and realizing I was too scared to try. Ryan's hand moved before his brain could stop it, fingers brushing against hers where they hung at her side. The contact lasted maybe 2 seconds before they both pulled away, awareness of their surroundings reasserting itself. "We should get back," Madeline said, her voice unsteady. "Before someone notices we've both disappeared." They returned to the main gallery separately, circulated among different groups, maintained careful distance. Ryan made appropriate comments about paintings he didn't understand and accepted business cards from people whose names he immediately forgot. Through it all, he remained hyper-aware of Madeline's presence, the sound of her laugh from across the room, the way she gestured when making a point, the careful way she never looked directly at him for more than a second. An hour later, as the event wound down, Ryan found himself near the exit at the same time as Madeline. They walked out together with a group of other attendees, maintaining the fiction of casual collegiality. In the parking lot, under the cover of darkness and relative privacy, Madeline touched his arm. "That was harder than I expected," she admitted. "Which part?" "All of it. Being near you without being able to actually be with you. Pretending Friday night was some isolated incident instead of the beginning of something I can't stop thinking about." She glanced around, ensuring they were alone. "I want to kiss you right now. Is that insane?" "Probably. We're in our office building's parking lot where any number of colleagues could see us." "So that's a no?" Ryan looked at her, this powerful, guarded woman who was being vulnerable enough to ask for something she wanted despite all the reasonable arguments against it, and made a decision. He leaned in, pressed a quick soft kiss to her lips. It lasted maybe 3 seconds, chaste and careful, but it sent electricity through his entire body. "That's a yes," he said, pulling back. "But also an acknowledgement that we're both terrible at following our own rules about discretion." Madeline smiled, her hand coming up to touch her lips. "Terrible at discretion, but improving at honesty. I'll take it." They said goodnight with more appropriate distance, drove away in separate cars, and Ryan made it approximately 6 blocks before pulling over to text her. "I've been wanting to do that since Monday morning." "Only since Monday? I've been thinking about it since Friday night. We're going to get caught, aren't we? Someone's going to notice and it's going to complicate everything. Probably. But I'm starting to think some complications are worth it." The weekend brought Emma back into Ryan's custody and a return to the comfortable routines of fatherhood. They made pancakes Saturday morning, went to the park in the afternoon, built an elaborate blanket fort in the living room that evening. Emma chattered about school and friends and her ongoing philosophical differences with Madison regarding unicorn authenticity. "Can we go back to the beach soon?" she asked Sunday morning over cereal. "Sure, kiddo. Maybe next weekend if the weather's good." "Can Miss Cross come with us again?" Ryan paused mid-bite. "Why do you want her to come?" "Because she was nice, and she's good at building castles, and you smiled more when she was there." Out of the mouths of babes, once again. Ryan set down his spoon, studying his daughter's earnest face. "You noticed that? Dads aren't supposed to be sad all the time. You've been sad since Mommy left. But when Ms. Cross was helping with the castle, you looked happy, like real happy, not pretend happy." Ryan's throat tightened. He thought he'd been hiding it better, thought Emma was young enough not to notice the weight he carried. Apparently he'd underestimated his daughter's perceptiveness. "I'm working on being happier," he said carefully. "It takes time." "Ms. Cross makes you happy though, right?" "She does, yeah, but it's complicated, sweetheart. She's my boss, which means we have to be careful about how we're friends outside of work." Emma considered this with the seriousness of someone navigating complex social dynamics on the elementary school playground. "Like how I can't be best friends with Sarah anymore because she moved to my reading group and Mrs. Patterson says we distract each other?" "Sort of like that. Adults have rules about keeping work separate from personal stuff." "But you still like her?" "Yeah, kiddo, I still like her." "Then you should invite her to my birthday party. It's in 3 weeks. She could help me with the treasure hunt you promised." The suggestion was so innocent, so earnestly offered, that Ryan didn't have the heart to explain why inviting his boss to his daughter's 9th birthday party might send entirely the wrong message to everyone involved, Jennifer, the other parents, their colleagues, if word got back. "I'll think about it," he said instead. "Thinking about it means no," Emma said with the wisdom of a child who'd heard that phrase too many times. "Thinking about it means I need to figure out if it's a good idea first. Now finish your cereal before it gets soggy." Later, while Emma was absorbed in a cartoon, Ryan texted Madeline, Emma wants to invite you to her birthday party in 3 weeks. I told her I'd think about it. The response came quickly. That's sweet, but probably not a good idea, right? Too public, too many questions. That's what I thought. But she specifically said she smiled more when you were at the beach. Apparently I haven't been hiding my loneliness as well as I thought. Kids see everything. It's both wonderful and terrifying. She really likes you, keeps asking when you'll help us build another castle. I'd like that too. Maybe we can arrange something more private? Not a party with other parents, just the three of us? Ryan stared at the text, his heart doing complicated things. Madeline wanted to spend time with Emma, wanted to be part of these moments, not just exist in the separate sphere of their adult relationship. That meant something. That meant she was thinking about this as more than a casual connection. That could work. Next weekend, maybe? Low key, just beach time. I'd love that. Fair warning, though, I'm getting emotionally invested here. In you, in Emma, in this whole messy, complicated situation. If that's too much too fast, tell me now. Ryan looked at his daughter on the couch, at the fort they'd built together, at the life he'd carefully constructed in the aftermath of divorce. Adding someone new to that life meant risk. Meant the possibility of Emma getting attached to someone who might not stay. Meant opening himself up to loss again, but it also meant the possibility of building something good, something whole, something that grew in the ruins of what had fallen apart. It's not too much, he typed. It's exactly right. And that terrifies me, but I'm doing it anyway. Good. Because I'm all in, Ryan. Whatever this becomes, I'm committed to figuring it out with you. Ryan sat there in his living room, his daughter singing along to cartoon characters, and let himself feel something he hadn't allowed in years. Hope. Not the fragile, desperate hope of someone clinging to wreckage, but the solid, grounded hope of someone who'd survived the breaking and was ready to build again. The following Saturday arrived with perfect beach weather, clear skies, gentle breeze, the kind of Florida morning that made postcards look understated. Ryan loaded the car with their usual beach supplies while Emma vibrated with excitement, asking every 30 seconds if Ms. Cross was really coming and what time she'd be there and whether they should build an even bigger castle this time. She'll be there at 10, Ryan said for the 5th time. And yes, we can build whatever castle you want. With 8 towers this time, 1 for each year I've been alive, plus 1 for good luck. 8 towers it is. They arrived early, claimed their usual spot near the water, and Emma immediately began planning the castle's architecture with the seriousness of a professional engineer. Ryan set up the umbrella and chairs, checked his phone compulsively, and tried not to think about all the ways this could go wrong. Introducing Madeline to more of his world with Emma felt significant. It meant crossing a threshold from casual dating into something with weight and permanence. It meant Emma might get attached, might start hoping for things that Ryan couldn't guarantee, might get hurt if this relationship didn't survive the complexities stacked against it. But it also meant honoring what Madeline had said about being all in, about not wasting time pretending she didn't want things, about building something real instead of hiding behind fear. Madeline appeared at 10 o'clock exactly, walking across the sand in denim shorts and a white t-shirt that made her look younger and softer than her usual corporate armor allowed. Emma spotted her first and went running, crashing into Madeline with the enthusiastic hug of a child who'd decided someone was important. You came! Daddy said you would, but I was worried maybe you got busy with work stuff. Madeline laughed, steadying herself against Emma's impact. I promised, didn't I? And I always keep my promises. We're building 8 towers today. That's 1 for every year I've been alive, plus luck. 8 towers is very ambitious. We'll need a solid foundation. Emma grabbed Madeline's hand and started pulling her toward their spot, chattering about her detailed plans. Madeline caught Ryan's eye over Emma's head and smiled, a real, unguarded smile that made his chest feel too full. Hey, she said when they reached the umbrella. Hey yourself. Thanks for coming. Thanks for inviting me. She set down her beach bag, pulled out sunscreen. Fair warning, I'm going to be terrible at this. I don't actually know how to relax. Then you'll fit right in with us. Emma's idea of relaxation involves complex engineering projects, and I spend most beach days worrying about sunburn and riptides. Perfect. A family of overachievers and anxious planners. The word family hung in the air between them for a moment, significant and dangerous. Emma didn't notice, already digging in the sand with focused determination, but Ryan noticed, and from the way Madeline's expression shifted, so did she. They spent the morning building the most elaborate sandcastle Ryan had ever attempted. Emma directed operations like a general commanding troops, assigning each adult specific towers while she worked on the central courtyard. Madeline threw herself into the project with unexpected enthusiasm, her hands covered in wet sand, her hair escaping its ponytail in the breeze, her laughter genuine and frequent. "This tower's leaning," she announced, studying her work critically. "All towers lean eventually," Emma said with the philosophical acceptance of someone who'd built and lost many castles. "The ocean always wins in the end. We just enjoy them while they're here." Madeline looked at Ryan, something vulnerable in her expression. "Your daughter is the wisest person I've ever met." "She gets it from her mother," Ryan said automatically, then felt guilty for the deflection. "Actually, no. Emma gets it from being Emma. She sees the world clearly in ways adults have forgotten how to." They worked in comfortable silence for a while, the kind of easy companionship that Ryan had thought impossible after the divorce. Jennifer had been many things, but she'd never been comfortable with silence, always filling space with conversation or music or television, always needing noise to feel connected. Madeline seemed content to just exist beside him, occasionally offering observations about tower height or moat depth, but mostly just being present. "I need shells for decoration," Emma announced once the basic structure was complete. "Daddy, come help me find good ones." Ryan started to stand, but Madeline touched his arm. "I'll go with her. You've been running around all morning. Rest for a minute." Before Ryan could protest, Emma had grabbed Madeline's hand and they were walking down the beach together, Emma's enthusiastic chatter carrying back on the wind. Ryan watched them go, his daughter and this woman who'd unexpectedly crashed into his life and changed everything. His phone buzzed. A text from Jennifer. "Emma's birthday party. We need to discuss arrangements. I'm thinking something at the house. Mostly family, nothing too elaborate." Ryan's stomach clenched. Emma's birthday. Jennifer would expect to host, or at least co-host, would have opinions about the guest list and the cake and every other detail. It was her way of maintaining control, of proving she was still the primary parent despite the custody split. He typed back, "Emma specifically requested a treasure hunt at the beach. She's been planning it for weeks." "The beach?" "Ryan, that's impractical. Weather could be bad, parents will complain about sand, and honestly, it seems like you're just doing it because you can't be bothered to plan something proper." Ryan felt anger rising, familiar and toxic. This was Jennifer's pattern. Dismiss his ideas, frame his choices as laziness or incompetence, subtly undermine his parenting while maintaining plausible deniability that she was just being practical. "Emma wants the beach," he typed firmly. "That's where we're having it. You're welcome to help plan if you want to be involved." "Fine. But don't come crying to me when it's a disaster." Ryan set his phone down harder than necessary, trying to breathe through the frustration. Down the beach, Emma and Madeline were examining shells, Emma holding each one up to the light while Madeline offered observations. They looked natural together, comfortable in a way that made Ryan's heart ache with possibility and fear. 20 minutes later they returned, Emma's hands full of shells and Madeline carrying the ones that had overflowed. "We found so many good ones," Emma announced. "Ms. Cross knows all about shells. She told me the scientific names and everything." "Marine biology minor in college," Madeline explained. "Useless information that apparently impresses 8-year-olds. "Almost 9-year-olds, Emma corrected. "My birthday's in 2 weeks and 5 days." "Is that right? What kind of party are you having?" Emma launched into an elaborate description of her birthday plans, the treasure hunt on the beach, the mermaid cake she'd seen in a bakery window, the friends she wanted to invite from school. Madeline listened with genuine interest, asking questions and offering suggestions that made Emma beam. Ryan watched this interaction with growing certainty about something he'd been avoiding. This wasn't casual anymore. This wasn't two lonely adults finding temporary comfort. This was real, complicated, and headed somewhere that required actual decisions about the future. "Emma," he said carefully, "why don't you go start decorating the castle while I talk to Ms. Cross for a minute?" "Grown-up talk?" "Yeah, kiddo, grown-up talk." Emma rolled her eyes but skipped away toward the castle, already planning the placement of her shells. Madeline sat down beside Ryan in the sand, close enough that their shoulders touched. "Everything okay?" she asked. "Jennifer just texted about Emma's birthday. She wants to host at her house. I told her Emma wants the beach." I take it she wasn't thrilled. "She thinks I'm being impractical and lazy, which is Jennifer speak for you're doing it wrong, and I'm disappointed but won't say it directly." Madeline was quiet for a moment, watching Emma work on the castle. "Can I ask you something that might be overstepping?" At this point, I'm not sure we have boundaries left to overstep. "Fair. How much of your difficulty with Jennifer is actually about Emma, and how much is about you proving you're a good father despite the divorce?" The question cut deeper than Ryan expected. He wanted to deflect, to insist it was all about Emma's best interests, but Madeline deserved honesty. "Probably more of the second than I want to admit," he said finally. "The divorce made me feel like I'd failed at the most important thing. Being a good father to Emma is how I prove to myself and to Jennifer that I'm not a complete disaster. And what about proving it to Emma?" "What do you mean?" Madeline shifted to face him more fully. "Emma doesn't need you to be perfect. She needs you to be present and honest and willing to show her that adults make mistakes and keep trying anyway. You're so busy proving you're not a failure that you're missing the fact that she already thinks you're exactly what she needs." Ryan felt his throat tighten. "How did you get so wise about parenting when you don't have kids?" "Expensive therapy, remember? My therapist spent a lot of time helping me understand that perfectionism is just fear wearing a professional outfit. I recognize it because I've lived it." She took his hand, her fingers warm against his. "You're enough, Ryan. For Emma. For your job. For me. You don't have to keep performing perfection to earn the space you already occupy." "I don't know how to stop. The performing, I mean." "Neither do I. But maybe we could learn together. Two recovering perfectionists trying to figure out how to be human." Emma called out from the castle, "Come see! I finished the garden." They walked over to admire her work, an elaborate arrangement of shells forming pathways and flower beds around the castle base. Emma explained each design choice with the seriousness of a museum curator, and Madeline asked thoughtful questions that made Emma glow with pride. The tide was starting to come in, each wave reaching a little farther up the beach. Emma watched the water with philosophical acceptance. "We should build another one next time," she said. "Bigger and better. Now that we know what we're doing." "That sounds like a plan," Madeline agreed, then looked at Ryan. "If that's okay with your dad." "More than okay." Ryan pulled out his phone, opened the calendar. "Emma's birthday is in 2 weeks. The Saturday after would be good for another beach day, if you're free." He was offering more than a beach date, and they both knew it. He was offering consistency, presence, the beginning of something that looked like real commitment. Madeline's eyes widened slightly, understanding the significance. "I'm free," she said. "I'll mark it down." The first wave reached the castle's outer wall, softening the edges. Emma laughed and ran up the beach to avoid getting soaked. The second wave took out 2 towers. By the 5th wave, the castle was a formless mound of wet sand, all their morning's work erased by the ocean's indifferent persistence. "Gone already," Emma said, but she sounded satisfied rather than sad. "That's okay. We know how to build better ones now." They packed up their things slowly, none of them quite ready for the day to end. Emma chattered about what she wanted for lunch, about a book she was reading in school, about whether dolphins could actually understand human speech if they tried hard enough. In the parking lot, Madeline leaned against her car and looked at Ryan with an expression he couldn't quite read. "I had fun today," she said. "Real fun, the kind I'd forgotten existed." "Me too." "Ryan, I need to tell you something, and I need you to hear it knowing I'm not expecting anything in return. I'm just being honest." His stomach clenched. "Okay. I'm falling for you, for both of you, really. Emma's incredible, and you're..." She paused, searching for words. "You're everything I didn't know I was looking for. I know it's fast. I know we're still figuring this out. But I need you to know where I stand." Ryan's heart hammered against his ribs. The smart thing would be to pump the brakes, to remind her about all the complications, to protect both of them from moving too fast. But looking at her, Sand in her hair, sun on her face, vulnerability in her eyes. The smart thing felt like the wrong thing. "I'm falling for you too," he said. "It terrifies me because I've already failed at one relationship and I can't afford to fail at this one. Not with Emma getting attached, not with our jobs tangled up in it, but I'm all in anyway because I think this might be real." Madeline's smile could have powered the entire city. Real is terrifying. Real is everything. She kissed him then, right there in the beach parking lot where anyone could see, and Ryan stopped caring about discretion or professional boundaries or any of the careful rules they'd established. This was real and messy and completely worth the risk. When they finally pulled apart, Emma was knocking on the car window, making exaggerated kissy faces. Both adults laughed, heat flooding their faces like teenagers caught by parents. "She's never going to let me live this down," Ryan said. "Good. Let her see that adults can be happy and affectionate and still responsible. That's a better lesson than pretending feelings don't exist." The next 2 weeks passed in a blur of birthday planning, work deadlines, and stolen moments between Ryan and Madeline. They coordinated Emma's party details via text and quick meetings that were ostensibly about work, but somehow always circled back to treasure hunt logistics and whether mermaids preferred chocolate or vanilla cake. Jennifer agreed to the beach party with minimal complaint, which made Ryan suspicious until she mentioned her new boyfriend Paul would be attending. Ryan gritted his teeth and agreed, determined not to let Jennifer's relationship status affect his daughter's birthday. The morning of Emma's party arrived with typical Florida unpredictability. Clouds threatening rain, wind picking up, the universe apparently determined to prove Jennifer right about beach parties being impractical. Ryan checked the weather radar obsessively, while Emma bounced around the apartment too excited to eat breakfast. "What if it rains?" she asked for the 10th time. "Then we get wet. Pirates don't cancel treasure hunts for a little rain. What if Mom gets mad because her hair gets ruined? Then Mom will be mad. But this is your day, kiddo. Your party, your rules." Emma hugged him hard. "Thanks for doing this, Daddy. I know Mom wanted the house party, but the beach is better. You're worth breaking the rules for." They arrived at Clearwater Beach to find Madeline already there, setting up the treasure hunt with military precision. She'd arrived an hour early to hide clues and prizes, had backup plans for weather changes, and had even brought tarps in case they needed emergency shelter. "You didn't have to do all this," Ryan said, taking in the elaborate setup. "I wanted to. Emma's important to you, which makes her important to me." Madeline handed him a laminated map showing the treasure hunt route. "I may have gotten slightly carried away. Turns out I'm very competitive about children's birthday parties. I could kiss you right now. Save it for when there aren't 9 8-year-olds about to arrive." The party was chaos in the best way. Kids running along the beach following clues, parents chatting under the umbrellas, Emma's laugh carrying across the sand as she and her friends discovered each treasure. Jennifer arrived with Paul in tow, her expression tight when she saw the perfectly executed party that Ryan definitely hadn't managed alone. "This is quite elaborate," Jennifer said, her tone suggesting criticism disguised as compliment. "Did you hire a party planner?" "I had help from a friend," Ryan said carefully. "What friend?" Before Ryan could answer, Madeline appeared carrying the birthday cake, an elaborate mermaid creation that made Emma squeal with delight. "Miss Cross!" Emma ran over, throwing her arms around Madeline's waist. "You came, and you got the right cake!" Jennifer's eyes narrowed, recognition clicking into place. "Miss Cross, Ryan's mentioned you. You're his boss." "That's right, Madeline Cross." She set down the cake and extended her hand with professional courtesy. "You must be Jennifer. Emma speaks very highly of you." The tension crackled thick enough to cut. Jennifer shook Madeline's hand with the calculating expression of someone reassessing a situation. Her boyfriend Paul looked confused, clearly not briefed on the complexity of the dynamics he'd walked into. "I didn't realize Ryan's boss would be attending Emma's birthday," Jennifer said, her voice sugary, sweet, and dangerous. "How generous of you to take time from your busy schedule." "Emma invited me. I wouldn't miss it." "How long have you been helping with party planning? This seems above and beyond typical employer-employee relationships." Ryan felt his jaw clench, but Madeline remained perfectly composed. "Emma and I met at the beach a few weeks ago. We built sandcastles together. She's a delightful child. You should be very proud." The compliment about Emma seemed to deflate some of Jennifer's hostility, though suspicion remained in her eyes. Before she could press further, Emma dragged Madeline away to show her friends the treasure map, leaving Ryan alone with his ex-wife and her boyfriend. "Your boss, Ryan?" Jennifer's voice dropped to a hiss. "Are you serious right now? You're dating your boss?" It's complicated. It's a disaster waiting to happen. What are you thinking? This could affect your job, your custody arrangement, everything. My relationship status is none of your business anymore, Jen. You made sure of that when you filed for divorce. It becomes my business when it affects Emma. What happens when this blows up? When you get fired or dumped or both? Emma's already getting attached to her. I saw how she hugged that woman. You're setting our daughter up for heartbreak. Paul shifted uncomfortably, clearly wishing he was anywhere else. Ryan felt anger rising, the familiar pattern of Jennifer criticizing his choices while positioning herself as the responsible parent. "Emma's happy," Ryan said firmly. "She likes Madeline. And unlike your boyfriend, who Emma met exactly twice before you brought him to her birthday party, Madeline has been part of her life gradually, carefully, with Emma's well-being as the priority." Jennifer's face flushed. "How dare you? I dare because I'm Emma's father, and I'm allowed to make decisions about who's in her life. The same way you made that decision about Paul. We're both allowed to move on, Jen. We're both allowed to find happiness again. Or is that privilege only extended to you?" Jennifer stared at him, something like surprise crossing her face. In 2 years of custody negotiations, intense handoffs, and passive-aggressive text exchanges, Ryan had never pushed back this directly. He'd always been conciliatory, always tried to keep the peace, always absorbed her criticism without defending himself. "The party's lovely," she said finally, changing tactics. "Emma seems happy. That's what matters." It wasn't an apology or an admission that she'd overstepped, but for Jennifer, it was as close as she'd get to acknowledging she'd been wrong. Ryan accepted it with a nod and escaped to help Madeline supervise the treasure hunt's grand finale. They found the main treasure chest together, all 9 kids digging in the sand where X marked the spot, their shrieks of excitement loud enough to scatter seagulls. Inside were small toys and candy, and for Emma, a special gift from Madeline, a delicate glass sandcastle that caught the light and threw rainbow prisms across the sand. "It's beautiful," Emma breathed, holding it carefully. "I can keep it forever and remember today." "Some castles do last," Madeline said softly, her eyes meeting Ryan's over Emma's head, "when they're built with the right materials and protected carefully." The party wound down as afternoon turned to evening. Parents collected their sugar-high children, Emma opened presents with appropriate enthusiasm, and Jennifer left with Paul after a stilted goodbye that suggested she was reassessing everything she thought she knew about her ex-husband. Finally, it was just Ryan, Madeline, and Emma sitting in the sand watching the sunset paint the sky in impossible colors. "Best birthday ever," Emma announced, leaning against Ryan with satisfied exhaustion. "Thank you, Daddy, and thank you, Ms. Cross." "You can call me Madeline," Madeline said gently. "If you want to." Emma considered this seriously. "Is that because you're not just Daddy's boss anymore? Because you're his girlfriend?" Ryan choked on air. Madeline's eyes went wide. Neither of them had discussed how to handle this conversation with Emma. "What makes you think that?" Ryan managed. "You look at each other the way Princess Anna looks at Kristoff in Frozen, all googly and smiley. Plus you kissed in the parking lot 2 weeks ago, and I saw even though you thought I didn't." Ryan looked at Madeline helplessly. She was trying very hard not to laugh. "You're right," Madeline said finally. "Your dad and I care about each other very much. Is that okay with you?" Emma shrugged. "As long as you keep helping with sandcastles and you're nice to Daddy, I think it's good. He smiles more now, like real smiles, not sad smiles. I'll always be nice to your dad, and I love building sandcastles with you." "Good." Emma stood, brushed sand from her legs. "Can we go get ice cream now? Birthday tradition." They went for ice cream, a new tradition. The 3 of them crowded into a booth at Emma's favorite shop while she recounted every detail of her party to anyone who would listen. Then they drove Emma back to Ryan's apartment, where she fell asleep almost immediately, exhausted from excitement and sugar and the particular contentment of a birthday well celebrated. Ryan and Madeline stood in his living room, suddenly aware they were alone together in his space for the first time since this all began. "Thank you," Ryan said, "for today, for the treasure hunt and the cake and handling Jennifer with more grace than she deserved. Jennifer's protecting her daughter. I can't fault her for that, even if her methods are questionable." Madeline sat on the couch, patted the space beside her. "Besides, she's not wrong to worry. This is complicated." Ryan sat down, close enough that their thighs touched. "Are you having second thoughts?" "No, but I think we need to have a real conversation about what happens next. Not the careful, cautious version where we protect ourselves. The honest version where we admit what we want." "Okay." Ryan took her hand. "What do you want?" "I want this. Us. Emma. I want to keep building sandcastles and planning birthday parties and figuring out how to navigate your ex-wife and my career and all the complicated pieces. I want to risk it because I think what we could build together is worth more than the safety of staying alone. Even though I come with a daughter and an ex-wife and a job that requires you to be my boss? Especially because of those things. They're part of who you are, Ryan. I don't want the simplified version. I want the real, messy, complicated version." Ryan felt something unlock in his chest. The last piece of armor he'd been wearing, the final wall protecting him from being fully vulnerable. He kissed her, slow and deep, trying to communicate everything he couldn't put into words. "I want that too," he said when they finally pulled apart. "All of it. The mess and the complications and the risk. I want to build something real with you." "Then we need to do this right. Tell HR about our relationship, establish clear boundaries at work, maybe look into whether one of us should transfer to a different department to eliminate the power dynamic." "You've thought about this." "I've thought about nothing but this for 3 weeks. I'm not willing to hide us, Ryan. Not anymore. If we're doing this, we do it honestly. Let people talk. Let HR create whatever policies they need. Let Jennifer's lawyer try to use it against you in custody negotiations. We face it together instead of hiding." "That's terrifying." "Everything worthwhile is terrifying. Emma taught me that, remember? You enjoy things while they're here. You build castles knowing the tide will come eventually. You do it anyway because the building itself is what matters." Ryan pulled her close, breathing in the scent of sunscreen and salt air and something uniquely Madeline. "Okay, we do this right. Together." "Together," she agreed. 3 months later, Ryan sat in HR's office with Madeline beside him, both of them providing the required documentation for their relationship. The HR director reviewed their statements with professional neutrality, made notes about department transfer options, and ultimately determined that with Ryan moving to a different division, there was no conflict of interest. Jennifer's lawyer did try to use the relationship in custody negotiations, arguing that Ryan's involvement with his boss showed poor judgment. The judge disagreed, noting that 2 adults in a committed relationship was hardly grounds for restricting custody. If anything, it demonstrated stability. At work, people talked. Some colleagues seemed genuinely happy for them. Others made uncomfortable jokes or avoided Ryan in the break room. He learned to ignore the whispers, focusing instead on his work and the life he was building outside those office walls. Emma adjusted to the new normal with the resilience of childhood. She liked having Madeline at family dinners, liked having another adult who listened to her stories and helped with homework and occasionally overruled Ryan's more cautious parenting decisions. She liked, Ryan realized, having something that felt like a complete family again. On a Saturday morning, 6 months after that first beach encounter, Ryan and Madeline stood in front of a realtor looking at a house. It was too big for just Ryan and Emma, too expensive for one person's salary, too much commitment for people who'd only been officially together for half a year. "It has a backyard for Emma," Madeline pointed out, "and an office for you, and that second-floor library could be converted into my workspace." "You're talking about moving in together." "I'm talking about building something permanent, together." She turned to face him fully. "Unless it's too fast. Unless you're not ready." Ryan thought about all the ways this could fail. About Jennifer's inevitable reaction, about the risk of merging their lives so completely, about what would happen if this relationship eventually crumbled like his marriage had. Then he thought about Emma's 9th birthday, about sandcastles and treasure hunts, and the way Madeline had held his hand while facing down his ex-wife's judgment. He thought about 3 months of proving that what they'd built could withstand scrutiny and pressure and all the reasons it should have failed. "Let's make an offer," he said. The realtor beamed. Madeline's smile could have lit the entire neighborhood, and Ryan felt certain, for the first time since his divorce, that he was making exactly the right choice. They closed on the house 8 weeks later. Emma got to pick the color for her new bedroom, mermaid teal naturally. Ryan set up his office with Emma's help, which meant half his bookshelf space was dedicated to her favorite stories. Madeline converted the upstairs library into a workspace, but made sure to include a reading nook for Emma's visits. On their first night in the house, the three of them sat in the backyard while Emma chased fireflies and made wishes on evening stars. "Are you happy?" Madeline asked quietly. Ryan looked at his daughter laughing in the twilight, at this woman who'd crashed into his life through the universe's strangest intervention, at the home they'd chosen together. "Yeah," he said. "I really am." "Me too." She leaned her head on his shoulder. "Thank you for taking the risk, for being brave enough to try. Thank you for seeing me, for being willing to build something from the wreckage." Emma ran over, breathless and bright-eyed. "I caught 3 fireflies. Make wishes and let them go, right?" "Right," Ryan agreed. "What are you wishing for?" "Can't tell or it won't come true." Emma held the fireflies carefully, then released them one at a time, watching them rise into the darkening sky. "But I think it already did come true, at least the important parts." Later, after Emma was asleep in her new room and Ryan and Madeline stood together looking at boxes they still needed to unpack, Madeline said, "Do you ever think about how different everything would be if the wind hadn't blown my swimsuit away that day?" "Frequently. I also think about how embarrassing moments sometimes lead to the best outcomes. We should go back to that beach, build another castle, just the 3 of us." "Tomorrow?" "Tomorrow's perfect." The next morning, they returned to Clearwater Beach, to the spot where everything had changed. Emma directed construction on the most ambitious castle yet, 12 towers this time, 1 for each month of the year, because she'd decided the Queen needed to celebrate every season. They worked together under the Florida sun, 3 people who'd learned that the best things grow in unexpected places. The tide would come eventually, would reclaim their castle like it did all castles. But that was tomorrow's concern. Today they built towers, today they laughed, today they were together, which was enough. More than enough. Everything.